Hey everyone, before we get started, just a couple of announcements. First, please check out Women Wanted Zine. They are a charity fan project focused on the female characters of One Piece. Their proceeds go to the Malala Fund. So if you haven't, they are on Twitter at Women Wanted Zine or at linktr.ee/Women Wanted Zine. You can check them out there. They focus again on the female characters of One Piece. There's some really amazing stuff there if you have not checked that out. Also, want to mention that we have a lot going on Patreon this week. You can check us out at patreon.com/One Piece Podcast. The newest episode of Forced to Watch 4Kids, starring Steve and Alex, watching the Buggy related stuff. That's all coming this Friday. You could also check out the latest episode of Fight Together, where we talk to artists. That was available first on Patreon, but is now available for everyone on the main feed. Please check that out if you haven't. We have our new episode coming out in September that will be available first on Patreon, so make sure you check that out there. Our last Patreon-related announcement, we return to our Davy Jack fights this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, so check that out. That's available for all patrons live when it airs, and then for those $10 up, after it airs. So check that out. Again, patreon.com/One Piece Podcast. With all that out of the way, let's get on with the show. This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 634 for the week of Sunday, August 16th, 2020. My name is Zach.
And my name is Ed.
And my name is Steve.
And on today's episode, we have a special guest. He is the YouTube sensation. You may know him as Roger Space. Welcome back, Roger.
Always a pleasure to be back. I never get tired of the YouTube sensation title. I'm happy every time I hear it.
Is it on your Twitter bio yet?
No, I should really do that, honestly. It's like between all the different sponsorships, I just don't have like any room to space it in there. But I want to one day. I feel like you guys coined it, so...
I guess. Should we trademark that quickly?
You should.
Roger
You should before I steal
YouTube
it.
sensation before he steals it. We also have from the My Hero Academia podcast and the Haikyuu podcast as well. We also have Kendra with us. How's it going, Kendra?
Hi, good. Happy to be here. I think I was on a Fight Together one, but I don't think that one's out yet. So surprise, people, I'm back.
Yeah, she's back before she even left. You're going to be on our next one, I think, Women in Shonen. I'm excited. That's a fun discussion too. We might as well talk about it. If you haven't, the latest Fight Together episode is out now. We talk about art and artists. Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about that episode?
Good thing I started to mentally prepare myself for you throwing this my way.
Yeah.
We gathered a bunch of like the artists on our podcast and just terribly pitched ourselves as artists, but then we just went into some like the technical aspects of the artwork of One Piece that we really don't get much time to really divulge in on a regular show. And Oda's inspirations has changed in styles, and of course, criticisms here and there. There's a whole lot there, and I feel like we still barely scratched the surface, but maybe we'll do another one in the future. So listen to that one.
I for one could say that there are so many amazing artists in the One Piece community, particularly, that I think I feel like I could overstuff that episode with an entire audience filled, but and still only scratch the surface because there's so many talented people who are One Piece fans. So I'm sure we will do a sequel to that. And Steve, you have the latest episode of Forced to Watch 4Kids, I think, coming out this week. Do you want to talk a little bit about that one too? I'll throw it your way. So mentally prepared.
No, caught it. Thank you. The next episode of the podcast conveniently covers the entirety of the buggy portion of the East Blue episodes. And of course, I'm joined by Alex. And we discussed those 4 episodes of that arc. And
what stuck out to you most about the
new
buggy
accents?
stuff? Yeah, any good accents? That's a good question.
Yes, there are. Hope you like French.
All right.
Oh no. all our French listeners should be scared to hear that. Yeah, so that's cool. We got that coming. This episode of the One Piece podcast is a really special one. We're doing a lot of different things than we usually do. We have returning guest Henry Thurlow, animator from D'Art Stagio. They did the recent weekend video. If you've seen that, and they also did the most recent One Piece episode 937, I believe is the number. So we're joined with him to go through like an over 60-minute interview about him talking about that episode and all his work for that studio. Plus, we have a very in-depth anime recap for you. And then we're joined by all of us here. We will reconvene to talk about the end game for One Piece. Where we see it going as a franchise, as the series, and also whether we think it will end in the year 2050 or 2060, and then kind of talk about our general theories about where we see things going in the series. So why don't we get right into it? You guys ready?
All right.
Woo.
Yep.
Okay.
Why we're here?
Oh my god. Hello, everyone. We are here with very special guest, returning guest, Henry Thurlow, who worked on this week's episode of the anime over for D'Art Stagio, which I always hope I pronounce correctly. But how's it going, Henry?
It's going pretty good. Yeah, we worked on this week's episode, and the studio in general has been kind of picking up lately, getting a lot more press and doing some various projects. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw you guys helped with the weekends video too, right?
Yep, the new weekend video, Snow Child. So our CEO, Arthel Isom, he directed it, and then I worked as Enshutsu, which is like technical director or episode director, and then I did some animation myself too. And yeah, we were the production studio behind a weekend video. So that's cool.
It's crazy. Yeah. How was it? I'm sure that's a little bit different than what you've been working on, especially lately.
I don't know. So, you know, the internet likes, debating what is anime and what isn't anime. And I, as a fan, I do too, I guess, so it's kind of interesting and fun so long as there's no, like malice behind what you're saying. Some people, have that. This is an anime because something or other, right? But for us, to be honest, it's really just the same exact process. Like our studio is primarily the primary language of our studio is Japanese. Actually, all of our meetings are held in Japanese, and it's just expected that all of the art production related meetings are going to be held in Japanese. So whether it's me telling the animators to come around the table because we have to discuss our One Piece sequences, or whether we have to sit around the table to discuss our weekend, music video sequences, it's really like the exact same meeting, right? And we say the same things, and the process of passing sequences to animation directors and then to compositors and et cetera, is kind of the exact same. So so to me, they're kind of not that different. The only big difference is the client, obviously. So when we're working on, let's call it real anime, like TV anime in Japan, the people that we report back to are, Japanese, either production managers or episode directors, or directors directly. Whereas for overseas clients, Western clients, we're usually talking to some type of creative director. And obviously those conversations happen in English. And that's where the difference comes, because the Japanese creators have different expectations and kind of talk about the projects differently than the Western creators do. So those main creative direction meetings kind of happen differently and in different languages. But other than that, to me, it's all actually just animation work done kind of the same way.
You speak both, so it works out for you
Yeah,
both
yeah,
ways.
yeah, yeah.
No, it's really cool though. I hope it's been getting you a lot of new eyes and ears for your for all the anime that you're producing. I mean, have
Yeah.
you seen any big changes, both either in Japan or for clients here?
Yes. So actually, I think it was a little bit before the weekend video, actually. So it was just perfect timing. But so over the years, Arthel and I both have done a whole lot of interviews, and we keep trying to push our studio and ourselves, right? To obviously for the sake of business, we want the tons of followers and tons of people recognizing who we are, and because that will lead to lots of clients also knowing of our existence and giving us calls. But so despite doing lots of interviews and everything, we were in the Japan Times a couple times when we even just started a few years back. Nothing really garnered a lot of attention. I mean, a little attention, not bad. We were slowly building up something cool, but nothing blew up. But a few weeks ago or a month or two ago now, Arthel was featured in an article talking about they worded it differently than has been worded so far. So they were saying the first black-owned studio in Japan. Arthel, the CEO, is black. So that's how that one article met, spoke about the studio, and that blew up. That picked off,
Right. Yeah, I
picked up,
saw
and
that one.
tons of people shared that, which is cool. And so via that we got tons of followers. Individually as artists, we got a little boost, but the studio accounts got gigantic boosts. So that I think finally with that we were finally kind of put on the map, and people finally really knew of our existence. So yeah, maybe bigger and better things to come for sure. And then just since then, it was good timing because we just had some big things coming out right after that. The weekend video came out, and then this episode of One Piece, which we put quite a lot of effort into a few months back.
Yeah.
That just came out now, so it's all pretty good timing. So I don't know what'll happen from here on out, but it's been a pretty good couple months for us, I'd say.
So what was the the schedule or the time that you worked on this this particular episode of One Piece? How long did that take?
Man, so I think that we took this work pre the whole Corona thing starting up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at least that's when we went in for our first production meeting about it. I can't remember exactly what happened. I think as we were handing in, I think maybe we even handed in all the layouts. So we handed in all the layouts. I forget exactly when. I think it was April or so, because the episode was originally scheduled for maybe it was a little after April. The episode was originally scheduled exactly 2 months before it actually aired finally this week. So I think in June,
mid June, yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a June episode, and so I think the layouts were due at the end of April, something like that, and then at some point in May we were going to get the corrections back from that and do all the secondary key animation just a few weeks before then it would air. So and then in between those few weeks, they would in between it do additional corrections potentially, and then composite it, et cetera, et cetera. But what? So that schedule, actually, we did end up making that schedule because I think the Corona thing really kind of blew up in the midst of that process. But at that point, they didn't know they were gonna delay the anime yet. No one knew anything was gonna get delayed. So we were working under the assumption that it was going to air in June, and I think we made all the deadlines for that. But then right as we were making the final deadline for the secondary key animation, we were that's when they announced, oh, it's delayed. So then I was like, well, then why did I just pull 3 all-nighters here, like to hustle and get that to you. But obviously that was out of everyone's hands. Like no one knew that was going to happen, so I understand. And then from my understanding, like production, well, I don't know, I was going to say production stopped for a little while, but I don't actually think that's the case. Actually, I have a little list of some things I was going to mention here too, and the production schedule and how that kind of affected the episode. Well, I can mention that, at another point. But, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think when we had you on back, well, now I can't remember. Time really just blends together at this point because it's 2020. But
Yeah.
when we had you on, I'm pretty sure you had either just finished or were about to finish work on this episode, I think it was. And I know you said you were really excited. And I have to say, this was a really superb looking episode, which is, I think, probably why you've been getting a lot of people all over the internet clamoring about it. So how was it working on this one? I guess, how was your involvement with this one different than any previous ones, or was it around the same amount of involvement that you would have on a One Piece episode?
So the fundamental job is the same, right? Go
Right.
into Toei, have the production meeting. These are the sequences. First things first, please draw the layouts for the sequences, hand them in by the due date. The difference, there were a few things that were different this time. The biggest one is that this is the biggest like single job on an anime, like a television anime that our studio's taken on. Is that true? I think we worked on the Given movie that's coming out in a few weeks, and I think maybe that one actually we did a little bit more. But that's a movie, and that schedule was a little bit different. For television anime, like we took the most sequences we've ever taken. It was me and then 2 other they are animators, and we went into Toei, and instead of me just taking 10 or 20 sequences, we took like a whole ton of sequences. We took like I think it was 50 or over 50 sequences, which is actually like over a sixth of the episode. The whole episode was, I think, a bit less than 300 cuts. I think it was like 280 or 90, something around there. And so that means, in terms of the number of sequences that needed to be laid out for the whole episode, like we took like over a sixth of the whole episode, like our studio. So when we went back, we were faced with like a lot more work than we were used to. So we just had to buckle down and try to make the best stuff that we've made so far, while also making more of it. So it was quite the challenge, but it was like a fun challenge. Like I was happy to, it's always cool to work on anything, but I always feel like, was I really that important? I just took 5 sequences or 10 sequences, right? That's just me beating myself up, but that's some of the things I think about. And so this time I was like, no, we actually took a big chunk of this One Piece episode, so that's a lot of responsibility, So I was happy about that, but yeah, I really had to just sit down and work hard.
So which sequence? I was going to ask which sequences you were involved with key animating personally. I was curious.
Okay. Oh yeah. So the sequences that we took as a studio were actually like they break up the episode on their end. That's how they kind of pass out sequences usually. Every now and then you can pick your own sequences. If it's totally free and like you're one of the first animators to get to the episode, you can potentially request, hey, can I have these over here? I'm feeling these, and I'll make something really good for you if you can give me these. And then they'll be like, okay, all right, we'll divide it, how you wanted it. But in this case, we just went by their own division. So this was like part C as it was broken up in their, cut division, like, I don't know, paper. And so Luffy runs at Modillo Man and jumps in the air. And then for the first time, Hyoji explains Ryuo, like the Wano Kuni's haki, right? Like in Wano Kuni, like haki is used a little bit differently. I guess like they use like a stronger, crazier form of haki. And so there's like a quick flashback of the previous episode of Hyoji punching Alpaca Man. And then immediately after that flashback, when it cuts back to Hyoji talking to Luffy, that's where our sequences started. And I did draw that one. And then it goes all the way through. Luffy swooshes down, punches Medilla Man. He flies back. Luffy lands, goes, crap, this is still not right. And then Luffy looks down at his hand. Yeah, he goes like, crap, that still isn't right. I didn't do it right. And then he grips his hand, right? His hockey hand. That was my chunk of sequences. But then our studio kept going and part C kept going. So then Luffy like screams really loudly. A bunch of like smoke, puffs off of him. Queen gets really pissed that, no one can take him down. And he yells at everyone to get him. A bunch of Kaido's followers all rush Luffy, and then Luffy dashes at them and kind of gets the haki charged up in his fist again, and then he punches at the screen. And that was our last cut. And I did do that last one also. So I did the first chunk that I mentioned, and then just that last one of Luffy running at the screen and then, like swishing his hand, his hockey hand at the screen. Those were my sequences.
And it like
Now,
kind of Steve, go for it.
Were you guys the only other animation studio that was outsourced to do some animation?
I don't know. I don't know exactly. In the end credits, or in the opening credits, because that's where One Piece puts it. I got it open. I can see.
I can't read them.
Then again, even if it's not written, sometimes the studios just don't request their names to be posted, and or Toei's been good though in their defense, but sometimes like the studios also just forget to credit someone. So assuming that this is the actual correct list, though, I'm looking at it right now. Come on.
I think if you're looking at the same one that got tweeted to you, I did see that in the episode.
So I think our studio name, Der Stadio, is the only studio that's written there, and the rest is just people. I know that I know Sanda. You see the other name of the other foreigner there. So I know he's not a person at Toei. So they worked with other, at least freelance artists. My guess would be, just off the top of my head, where my name starts. Let's assume that's where the freelancers start. Everything underneath that is free. So I would say like it's half freelance artists and then half probably Toei in-house people, something like that.
Yeah, and it must have been.
I was just curious,
Steve,
because sorry, just one last thing, because I always assume like the majority of kind of like just the more conversational scenes, like later half in this episode with Luffy talking with Hyo and Caribou. I assume that's like mostly Toei in-house animators working on those, because they aren't.
It's funny.
Crazy.
Like I totally understand why you feel that way, and I would also 100% always feel that way. And you could be right. Honestly, like I feel like it's way more actually, like the reality is like it's actually just way more random. Like they're really just trying to pass out sequences once the storyboards are 100% confirmed, because they got to get moving, right? So like if I had told them, for example, look, we don't have time to do action sequences this time. If you need us to do part C, we can't take the work this time because that workload's too heavy, right? Like, but if you give us, 50 just simple sequences of them turning their heads, maybe we can do that. If they had those sequences, I bet they would have passed those to us, and then it would have been flipped, right? They would have done the action scenes in Toei and the dialogue scenes out. So I really think it's just totally random. Like I wouldn't be surprised if, especially in a long series like One Piece, I'm sure like any and everything has happened. I'm sure that there's episodes that have been done 100% in Toei, episodes that have been done 100% outsourced, episodes that the action sequences only were done at Toei, and then, et cetera, et cetera. So.
No, I really appreciate that. It's and that's only me just guessing because I know next to nothing. So this is me trying to understand the process, and I really appreciate that input.
We don't have the expertise of some people, I think, on Twitter, who take a look at every little tiny thing. I do want to say, though, I remember, I think from your first interview when you were on the show at the end of last year, you had mentioned that one of the reasons you went over to Japan in the first place was that you wanted to draw more action. And so it seems like you got that in this episode. Like you got the action scene, I think, in this episode.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry. What was the question?
I was done.
Oh, okay.
It was more of a statement that I was wondering if you could reflect on. At least I think you got one of the coolest scenes in the episode. So I was just wondering how it was to do something like that specifically.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, so it's interesting. I guess I can reveal part of my own inner demons in this. Like, well, just that, and like my worries as an artist. So when I came over here, I did have all these ideas of, I'm going to be like a crazy action animator. The word sakuga, like sakuga animator, like that didn't exist yet. Sakuga kind of means something a little bit differently in Japanese. But for me, I always did kind of draw in that. If you go and look at like my thesis film, which is called Introductions at Dawn. If you Google my name and then like thesis film or Introductions at Dawn, that'll pop up. And even in that one, so I did that a long time ago, 2005 ish, something around there, 2006 maybe. And then so in that one, like during the fight sequences, I do all the stuff that like kind of Sakuga people do nowadays. Like I was like changing the camera angle mid the guy dashing and stuff like that. When he punches and swings at the other guy, their arms turn into all these just zigzag lines, and then when the two blades clash, like it's pretty much just crazy weird zigzag effects. So my mind, and that was that was done on paper and before the digital like animation era, kinda. So I've always been thinking like that's how I like to animate and adding kind of crazy aspects in action sequences. But in America, I never had opportunity to realistically use that. I did that smear for like in Super Jail a few times, but that's not a super crazy action show. And then when I came to Japan, I really did get into this industry at the very bottom, right? And so there were rules. Like the in-between animator doesn't really have freedom to do anything. Like you have to just work really hard and make sure that the sequences are completed the way that they need to be. There was a couple times I could add certain details if the key or secondary key animation was kind of rough and it wasn't super clear. Like it wasn't just a simple trace back. Like I could interpret it myself a little bit when I cleaned it up as an in-between animator. I could put a little bit of freedom in there. So I did the zigzaggy kind of lines a little bit in like when I was working at Toei, I helped out on just in-between animation for the Kakashi versus Obito fight, like top-notch, like super world-class animators did the key animation for that. But then I in between a few sequences, and there was some freedom to kind of add some cool Sakuga kind of stuff in there. But then when I became key animator, my first thought was, oh, cool, now I can do this, right? Because now I'm the key animator, I'm the layout artist, I can do that. But when I tried adding that, I got shut down every time. Like and so when I would hand something in and my sequence would. I think it's common nowadays. Like nowadays, I see digital artists, even as their first freelance work, uh, they add the crazy weird effects and stuff. But for me, I was even in the industry for a while, and people knew me, or at least a couple of years before I even did key animation for the first time. When I handed it in, I got back just like no goods, right? Like this is no good. Redo this. We're not using this. We're not putting this on the show. Like fix this, or I would get corrections back, and it's like, well, the part where the character stopped is fine, but all the parts where he moved around and did this, you have to change it to these new notes, which is all like the interesting stuff got taken out, right, from my perspective. And so, I became very self-aware of that, and like, oh man, people don't like this. Like I get either not in trouble, but like I just waste my time. I waste my time if I try to add that, right? Because like I put in all this work and then it comes back not appreciated at all. And in fact, the opposite. There's a note that says like, what are you doing? Like fix all of this and redo your work. So I started to adapt to the industry and tried to get better at my job by taking these notes from these directors. And so I kind of relaxed my animation a bit, like, okay, we'll focus on just making it look good, but good from I'm not trying to rock the boat too much perspective, right? The character is here, the character is drawn like this, the character does what they need to do. Maybe there's some secondary key animation, maybe I add some extra shadows. I can keep putting my charms into my sequences, but don't go crazy to the point where I'm gonna not have given them what they wanted. And because I guess adding all those crazy little bells and whistles is kind of just something that I want, but maybe the director doesn't want, right? So I would rather be someone that hands in something that makes the director and everyone happy, as opposed to an animator that just tried to, self-indulge and just do whatever crazy stuff they wanted without taking, the storyboard artist and the director's feelings into account. That's what I did for a long, long time. And I still do kind of, because I was traumatized by all the notes, saying I was doing things wrong and not well, and et cetera, right? But my experiences with One Piece have been really good. And so I feel like they kind of like what I hand in. And so this was, I think, the third time I've worked on One Piece. And so the first time because the storyboards were kind of so rough, I felt like I could pretty freely change things. So like in the first time I participated in One Piece was the sumo fight, right? And the storyboards called for a certain amount of sequences, but I felt like the storyboards were kind of rough, and maybe I could animate from one sequence right into the next sequence and just have the camera spin around a little bit. And so I saw if I could do that. And then they liked what I did. And then in secondary key animation, they actually let me put even more details with the highlights and shadows if I wanted to, right? And so I realized, okay, Toei seems to be giving me a little bit more freedom than other places have. So when I participated the second time with the dragon, I went another step further, right? I merged more sequences, and I actually added, some of my little quirks that I do with animation, like when the Kaido dragon rushes at the screen and stuff. I added just drawings that have all the crazy kind of smears that I like putting in, but other places never said okay, and then they just said okay. So going into this episode, I felt fairly confident. Toei hasn't been a place that has told me no very much at all, and so and then even during the production meeting, I said like, hey, can I make this punch a little bit crazier? If I, put in the effort and have a good idea. And they were
Make
like,
his face ripple.
Yeah, like the face ripple. So the storyboards just called for Luffy to kind of standardly punch him, for it to the hand to just go in his face a little bit, and then actually for Medillo Man to just shoot to the left. There was no rolling on the ground or anything like that. It was just, there would be another sequence of him like,
But he's an armadillo.
well, he would just be flying straight to the left and then swoosh off the side,
Yeah.
right? And so, and I could have done that, and you know, if the schedule had been totally terrible for not only me, but let's say I didn't get these sequences and they were passed off to someone else, and this isn't the fault this theoretical additional person, but you know, let's say that their schedule was absolutely terrible, they would have done it just the way the storyboards called for it. He swooshes to the left and then just falls off, and then it would have been just a very, very standard, like not noteworthy One Piece action sequence, right? Luffy punches the guy, he flies to the left, and then you forget about it, right? But I was thinking, you know, Toei again has not really told me no very much, and I really want to, you know, I want the reaction that I got this time finally, right? Which is people online and everywhere saying, "Whoa, there's a cool action sequence," and Henry Thurlow made that action sequence. You know, as an animator, that's what I that's what I hope for, right? I don't hope for me to, you know, make sequences and then I go online and people are like, "Oh, yeah, those were some sequences in the episode, sure, whatever," right? Like, so I kind of bet that Toei would like it if I added the bells and whistles this time, and I guess they did. So yeah, I really do appreciate Toei. But part of me feels like their schedules are just so crazy that they don't have time to alter every animator's thing. So like if animators want to do things and add things, like One Piece's schedule is just so hectic and there's so many episodes that like they just let it happen. And if it doesn't turn out well, then whatever. Like there was a few not great sequences in one episode. What are you gonna do? But that's, I don't know. Maybe that's not the case either. But if it is the case, then it just kind of works out in my favor that I like working with Toei. it like that vibes with me. So yeah,
I think One Piece has always had kind of like the individualistic look, at least for quite a while. When there is a specific, again, my I'm more of a layman when it comes to all of this, but when you have certain individual, you can see certain individuals' touches on the story, on the art, and I definitely saw yours a little, especially with you drew a little piece for this episode, and I see your style a lot more in it now that I've seen that art in it. Yeah, it's cool.
That drawing there kind of helped me. It's like see a lot of your personal touches now. I'm like, oh yeah, like it's like his characters are very round.
Oh, that's Henry's.
I don't know,
oh yeah. Yes, that's true. Actually, I do. I do like rounding the edges, and some people don't like that. Actually, I get into that actually with the CEO here, Artel. Sometimes he's like, "Why don't you ever like have angles?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I like rounding stuff off." It's just, but you know what though? Okay, so I mentioned earlier about like I had something I wanted to say about the production schedule. So this kind of fits in with what you just said. So. It's interesting though, because I do want to be 100% honest with the people. There's one aspect kind of those sequences that isn't totally my style, and it's specifically Luffy's face. And so here's what happened with that. So in my experience, there's very little corrections that ever happen post secondary key animation. Just to review for people that don't understand the production process at all. The layout artist draws the layout, passes it back to the directors, and the directors and the animation director, the episode director, the actual director, they check the layout and the key animation, right? And if there's anything that they want to change, they change it at that step, and then they send it back, and they say, okay, here are your okayed layouts. Here are your layouts that didn't get okayed, or here are the changes that are needed to be made to them. And then the layout artist needs to one more time, ideally it's the same person, uh, go back and draw the really detailed actual keys for all their sequences. And that's called secondary key animation. So after the round of notes by the directors, the key animator redraws everything, and this time it's the real one, right? Now after that, it does go back to the directors just so that everyone checks everything real quick, and then they pass that to the in-between animators, right, to get the actual in-between animation and final line drawings. But very rarely are there big changes after secondary key animation, because it already went through all the people, and then the layout artist was told what needed to be changed and what didn't need to be changed. And so if the art style of a character's face, for example, wasn't what they exactly wanted, like they would have said in the first round of checks, hey, make sure it's drawn like this, with like a very detailed note or a detailed drawing that they're just supposed to trace, and then use that as reference for the rest of all the faces. When they do secondary key animation, that's when that would have happened in the process. Now, if the secondary key animation gets handed in and it's not good, yes, the directors obviously can still add some changes from there, but usually those are very small, like, oh, the eyelashes weren't good, or the scars were in the wrong place. Let's just do like little things like that. I'd rather that the highlights were done differently in the eyes. But usually the corrections after secondary key animation are very, very, very minor. So when I hand in secondary key animation, generally speaking, the way I handed it in at secondary key is the way it will show up on TV, right? And that has been the case in most stuff I've worked on. And in One Piece, totally that. Like the Dragon Kaido sequences I did, I added all my additional details and shadow layers and everything during that secondary key phase. And then that's exactly how it popped up. Like, did an animation director change the direction slightly of one of Kaido's horns or something like that? Maybe. It was something so subtle that maybe even I didn't notice, but it's possible. But for all intents and purposes, the way I handed it in secondary key is the way it ended up on TV. This time, though, when I saw the episode preview last week, I noticed two things, and they were both great things for fans, but one thing was like kind of iffy for me as an animator, and I got worried for a second. So the two things I noticed are, first, the sequences looked really good. Like I was like, oh wow, the in-between animators actually spent time and did them correctly. That might have had an influence, like the Corona thing and them extending the schedule maybe did have an influence over them being able to do in-between retakes. So that's really cool. I'm excited. But the other thing I noticed is like the Luffy faces, like the eyes, specifically the eyes and the nose, and the scars around the face. I was like, that's not how I drew it. Like someone else came in and did shusei. Shusei is the word for like revisions. Someone else did shusei post secondary key animation, and that's really rare. So part of me thought, oh no, maybe they didn't like what I handed in, or or maybe they changed a whole bunch of things in my sequences, right? Because obviously they went back in and changed one aspect of them. So God, I wonder what's going to change, right? So even when I watched the episode, I kind of had my breath held a little bit. Like, when Luffy punches this Medillo Man, is the ripple going to be there, or is it going to be a totally not ripple, animation sequence where they massively change things? Like, and that would have made me super paranoid. Like, oh no, did I make them angry? Did I not, give them something that they wanted? But as it turns out, everything did remain the exact way that I handed it in, except for Luffy's face, though. Like almost all of Luffy's faces, I will be totally honest with everyone, that was so I don't know exactly who drew it, but here's my guess. I think that the chief animation director and current character designer, Midori Matsuda, I think she probably, because of the 2-month delay, has gone back into a bunch of these episodes that were scheduled to air but then suddenly got 2 full months of like new schedule. And I think that she's probably personally fixing up the faces of most of the Straw Hats, right? I think in recent episodes, like a lot of the characters' faces are drawn really good. Hiyori, it was drawn like crazy good.
Yeah,
An
last
episode or
episode
two
had a lot
ago
of
when she was
very
talking with
on
Zoro.
model Nami's.
Yeah, Nami's face has been perfect, like freaking perfect, right? Like movie level.
Yeah.
Wow, they drew the characters perfect every single sequence, right? And that just doesn't happen in One Piece TV animation, realistically, right? Like there's too many sequences. You don't get all of there's always some sequences that are wonky, right? But not this time. Like now for the last few weeks, it hasn't been like that. And so I think with the extra schedule, she's been personally going in and even post secondary key animation, just saying, I'm going to make all of the Straw Hats just perfect. Like every key, I'm going to add a few corrections to just make it like movie level, exactly the Straw Hat face, right? And so I think that's why recent episode quality, particularly in the character art of the Straw Hats in particular, is so good. Because I think Midori Matsuda is probably going in and personally changing stuff. That is a guess. That is some conjecture. Like, for all the people online, Henry Thurlow confirms that Midori Matsuda. I'm not saying 100%, but that. Yeah,
there's definitely gonna be someone who does
happen.
that.
But I will try to get confirmation on that though, because I am curious. I want to see if I can get even copies of those corrections just for myself as an animator. So I am asking Toei for that personally. So
I mean,
go
ahead.
So if I do confirm that, I actually will post that on Twitter. Hey, I did get confirmation. The chief animation director is personally making changes. But to be like it's part of the so as a fan, I'm actually really glad. Obviously, I'm super glad she's doing it. And even as an animator, like it's an honor that like the absolute head of the entire show, would go in and spice up, my sequences even further. So it is cool, and it obviously that would be ideal. The ideal situation would be there's always time in the schedule so that the chief animation directors can go in and make correct changes. Like if you think about like an ultimate A plus animation, like a Satoshi Kon film or a production IG film, like Ghost in the Shell, like a movie, the chief animation directors change aspects of every single sequence. There's not one single sequence ever, even a sequence of like a hand putting a pencil down. Nothing that the chief animation director and character designer wouldn't individually say, I'm going to change a little thing over here, a little thing over here, a little thing over here, because they get every sequence to be actually 100% perfect, right? But in a TV anime, and particularly in a super crazy long one like One Piece, that just doesn't happen very often, which does result in like animators' individual kind of tastes and the way that they draw coming through in a lot of sequences, which is cool. Unless the person's style isn't great, right? But ideally, I think you would want this situation of the chief animation director kind of going through and seeing if they can spice up anything. Yeah.
I mean, I would add, and I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly because it's something that happened 7 years ago or so, but when we interviewed an animation director, Shigefume Shingaki, who did some work on One Piece and Strong World back at around that time. I believe when we asked him part of like what are the most difficult things to draw, I think Luffy and getting him on model was one of the things that I think he mentioned at that time. I think I think that's definitely something that has always been of specific interest in getting exactly right, from what I recall.
I posted a rough like animation of just the Medillo man getting punched and then flying back sequences. But in the middle of that punch, it cuts away to Luffy's face really quickly for like a flash as Luffy like zooms up to the screen.
Right.
That was my original. So if anyone is a Sakuga fanatic and wants to look at that sequence, you could pause it there and you see exactly how I drew Luffy, but then compare that to the actual episode and you see like it changes. I mean, I don't think I did a bad job. I think it was fine, but it does clearly change from like normal me drawing him to like all of a sudden it's like a movie level, like perfect face. And so, yeah.
I think it's fair to say that's something that, yes, there are probably people on the internet who realize that, but that's definitely something you, I'm sure, notice more than anyone because, you put, it's your pen to paper there. Are there any specific questions, Steve, Ed, Sam, anyone here has for Henry?
Like always,
I don't want to steamroll.
Bevy of information that I never thought I'd be privy to hearing, and every time we talk to you, we learn so much.
Yeah. Henry, you are like the ideal podcast guest. Like you have so much to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do like talking. That has its good moments.
No, it's great.
Oh man, who can I vent to about One Piece animation? I know the One Piece podcast guys.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
that's one of the many reasons we're always happy to have you on. I want to ask also, so we had you on last time. I think we asked you this question. If you could animate anything of the material that has not been animated, what would you want? And I think you had already done this episode, and I also think the other episode I'm about to talk about already came out. It was the Zoro fight on the bridge, on Bandit's Bridge. Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned, and that one ended up getting like the whole internet exploded, I think, over the treatment that one got. So I'll ask you the same question again. From the material that has yet to be animated, as far as you know, is it like dream? Obviously, I'm not asking you to literally choose it right now. But if, I just don't want to put anyone on the spot here at Toei.
So I mean, manga spoilers, I guess, right?
Yeah, for this question here.
Yeah. Well. It's funny. I was contacted about working on a future episode. I think around where King transforms, and that would have been my answer. So I was almost kind of offered the next cool sequence that happens, or at least something around that timing. But we're kind of busy with a whole bunch of other projects that came in for the next while, so I had to decline, unfortunately. So I don't know when the next time I'll be on One Piece is. It definitely won't be within the next few months, so it'll be a little while this time. But that kind of works out because I think as much as I like story-wise the whole like Oden flashback and everything, I don't know if there's any super flashy, crazy sequences that made me say, "Oh my god!"
Roger and Whitebeard is the big one I could think of.
Yeah, but you know what? Like I already know they're gonna give that to Shida.
I mean, they're gonna give that to their top. Yeah, they're gonna give that to their.
Yeah. Which they should, by the way, because like even as a fan, I want to see that get the the A+ best Toei animator treatment, right? For me, I guess stuff that's happening now in the manga, like once the war starts, then I would like to jump back on it. I'll probably be on One Piece even before that because the anime is usually like a year or like a little more than a year off. So probably within the next year, I'm sure I'll do One Piece again. So maybe right during that Oda flashback,
or maybe I'm trying to like think of there was a lot of cool action during that sea battle too. I'm like trying to think of when. I think we're heading into a lot of great action right now,
so
but yeah.
I will say, like, stuff that's happening now, though, would be really awesome. Like, I think that character Yamato is pretty cool. And then, what are the two brothers? People are going to get mad that I forgot. Or the brother and the sister that turn into the, like...
Oh, are they related?
Kiku and
Ulti and Page 1.
No.
Those two are cool, too, but I'm talking about...
Ulti and Page 1? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Are they related?
Yeah. Ulti and Page 1. So, like,
I don't know.
yeah, they're brother and sister, right? I thought so.
Uh.
Well, she keeps call. I mean, well, I guess in Japanese, maybe it's it's a little
Might
bit
be like Aniki or what's
hard.
the
Yeah. So I guess there's always that little. I guess they always leave that a little vague so that
people online.
I don't know. They could have a flashback. And they could have a flashback, and then they're not really blood related, but they just consider each other that. But from my understanding, I thought they were actually brother and sister. That's what I was thinking. But so like those characters are really cool, and I'm sure everything that's about to happen from now on in the manga, like the war has officially started. So literally, like any character fighting any character at this point, like it's gonna get crazy. So I mean, I wouldn't mind probably almost any sequence from immediately upcoming events.
Yeah. Do you guys have any other episodes? Any other questions? Otherwise, we could talk about the anime. All right, let's get into it.
This is the anime recap for episode 937, Konoyasu, Ebisu Town's Most Loved. I'm your host Sam, and today with me we have, joining us once again, we have our good friend Edward.
Hello.
Also joining us today, we have Mr. Steve Yurko.
That's Mr. Oh, I said the Mr. already.
And joining us today, we also have Zach Logan. Host
That's
of one of his
Mr.
podcasts
Zach Logan.
that you may have heard of. And joining us also, we have Dart Shitagio's own Henry Thurlow coming on, continuing on from his segment earlier in the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me. And you got the name right. Dare Stagio. Very good. Cool.
Oh, cool.
And I just want to say regarding the title this week, the title had a lot more to do with the episode this week than it did the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah. Lately they've been going for like the last, whatever reveal is in the last minute of
Whatever
the show.
happens in the last 2 to 3 minets of the show is what they put the title as.
These might as well be like BuzzFeed articles. It's like the last 3 minutes will shock you.
Well, that's what it was, but up until this week there was a good chunk right in the middle about Toniyasu. So
Yeah, no, I think this episode title was appropriate.
The title card this week begins at 2 minutes and 56 seconds. I think the last few episodes have been keeping it under the 3-minute mark as far as recap and opening goes. And so we return to Udon. Hyo has just finished punching, but not really punching, Alpaca Man. And Luffy is amazed, and he's asking Hyo how he did that. Luffy uses his observation haki to dodge some Medilla Man bullets. And Hyo is telling Luffy about how in Wano, haki is called Ryuo, which means flow. And so he's kind of instructing Luffy to, the classic, use the force, spiritual.
Yeah, I remember during the manga, we were reminiscing how this is a lot like Empire with Yoda on the back of Luffy in this case.
Like the beginning of Enter the Dragon.
Or that.
So Luffy's got his big kind of burning fist, open palm thing. Hyo is insisting that he doesn't press too hard, which Luffy does not listen to, and he goes right into Medilla Man's face so hard that Medilla Man's face goes inside. I know this is Henry's shot with the slow motion face ripple. Looks like if you ever watch like the slow mo guys on YouTube or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I do know what you're talking about. I did want to say on a content wise with this, it's really funny. You pointed it out how Hyo just keeps saying, "Luffy, you got to calm down," and then Luffy just gets angrier and angrier, just completely not taking
be gentle,
any advice.
Be calm. Pow! It's like
punch him with serenity.
Hit him in the knees.
Punch him so hard his
then
face
hit him in the head.
goes inside of his brain.
Well, when they cut back, you'll get to in a second, but like when they cut back and he's like, probably a few minutes or like an hour or two has passed, and he's like still just screaming on the top of his lungs, like punching everyone. Like it is kind of funny. Like Luffy is in just an absolute rage that he cannot get this right.
Yeah, it was funny. He didn't have enough food, I think, is part of the problem here, and which gets addressed later, not to spoil later in the episode for Sam.
So Manila Man is out for a moment, and Luffy's going at it with some mooks, and like the big dramatic music is going. We have the Chopper and Kiku. We have their group. They're telling Big Mom that they should be arriving in Udon later that night. Big Mom is still very hungry, and the Sharkadile is getting very nervous, so he speeds up. He doesn't want Big Mom to stay hungry for too long.
Love
And
the Sharkadile.
As usual, Chopper is afraid of being eaten.
I think he, more than usual, has reason to be afraid here. She has eaten people before, so why not a reindeer people?
I mean, who isn't afraid of being eaten?
When Big Mom's around.
The primal fear.
Yeah.
So
Same.
back in Ebisu Town, we have the scene with, Toniyasu has just kind of interrupted, and he seems very familiar with the whole plan with the flyers. He's referring to Shinobu and Shinobu and Kanjuro and Kinemon and all them as he's talking about them very familiarly. That's a very hard word for me. It turns out.
A lot of L's.
Yeah.
Familiarly.
I don't remember how it was done in the manga, but the Chan and Kun and all that stuff, it's interesting to hear that in the anime, because I don't remember how Steven addressed it other than you acted like he knew you, and yeah.
Yeah, I think he just.
I think the dialogue was very light on its feet there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching this myself. I was wondering, I'm like, what could they do if they get to an English dub of this? And I was thinking should he call him Little Kinemon or Old Kinemon?
That's actually the problem. Not to go off into a totally different conversation.
No, please do.
But no, but
that's why we're here.
That's the problem with translating before the whole thing is done. Because there might be little nuances being slipped into the dialogue that upon a later revelation will suddenly all make sense. But whoever's translating it into whatever language, if they don't they can't bring that nuance with their translation, right? At the time, if you don't see any significance in that, then you'll just be like, well, it doesn't really matter. So I don't, Kinemon-kun, right? It might have just been translated as Kinemon because whatever, there's some nuance of a little, looking down or disrespect or whatever in that, or looking at him like he's a kid, but it's fine, right? Because there's not going to be significance to that. But then later on, there's obviously huge significance to that. So, if you waited until the whole thing was done, let's say it was a single movie, you obviously wouldn't be translating as you're going through the movie the first watch through. You would watch the whole thing and then be like, oh, that's what there was significance in, and that's what was and wasn't important. Okay, now let me translate. But if we get weekly translations, as exciting as that is, it's really hard, because there's no way to know exactly what's going to come. Another thing that does that, I thought, was Okiku. So obviously everyone online, obviously the character is trans, right? But or at least is of the appearance of female, right? Everyone thought that Okiku is a female, but Okiku actually constantly refers to themselves as Osesha. And
this one, right? I think that's how
it's just another word for I, right? But when Okiku was introduced for the first time, I was actually watching it with a Japanese person who wasn't familiar with One Piece, and they even and it was noteworthy because they were like, Osesha? Well, that's weird. And then immediately following that, Zoro said the same line. Zoro was like, Sesha, right? And I was like, what's the significance of that? And it's well, Osesha is really something that's only supposed to be used by male samurais referring back to themselves. It's something like that. It's the word I for a man samurai. But they were like, oh, well, whatever. So this Okiku girl uses that. Okay, that's fine. But obviously later on, there's massive significance in that the whole time Okiku has been saying Sesha, right? So it's just, but you wouldn't know that. Like if you're just going through the first time, it's like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to translate this as the word I. There's probably no significance to that, right? So similarly, yeah.
Yes. So we continue on, and Yasu is making some comment about how, like the plan is kind of gotten out with the flyer, and he's thinking like, oh, if only we could pretend that it was fake and get them off our tail. His idea, but he's just kind of talking to himself. And he steps outside, calls Usopp handsome, calls Nami beautiful, calls the old woman town girl, and she seems very flattered by that. I guess because he's not insulting her for once.
I don't know. I thought he said something flattering, but now I don't remember.
I think it's just like, well, referring to her as a girl.
Yeah, I think it might have been an age
youthful.
thing. Yeah.
Yes.
I see. Like young. Yeah.
She's small because she's old, not because she's young.
I like that scene a lot. I liked how flattered that old woman was about that.
So once Yasu's out of the room, Sanji turns to Kanjuro and Shinobu, and he's asking like, okay, so what's the deal? How do you know this guy? And they spend a little bit of time just kind of fretting over it. Like, I don't know. And the group is surprised by this. Like, how can you not know? He was talking to you like your old friends or something. And
I thought that was the most human moment in One Piece, by the way. Like the forgetting who someone is that you're talking to. I've very much
not
like.
remembering Wano characters.
Also true.
Yasu's going around. He's playing with the little kids and he's delivering medicine to people. We get we cut back to Udon, Luffy and Hyo fighting more dudes. And Luffy, as we were talking about earlier, Luffy's getting frustrated that the hockey isn't flowing, and Hyo's just like, no, the fact that you're getting frustrated is the problem. A hockey will not flow in an angry fist.
But I'm so frustrated about it.
Yeah.
That's I
feel it.
Yeah.
I feel it. That brings us to the eye catch of the episode. Come back, some more Yasu stuff. Yasu's giving an old man a massage. He's offering him millet dumplings. He meets with the seaweed shop granny, and he's asking if there's anything she needs, and she says, nope, just seeing you cheers me up. And Yasu's like, oh, you're such a man killer, you, and she loves that. So Yasu, he seems to know everybody in this town. He knows all about their problems, and he's doing his best to help, and he's handing out little bags of money. Nami and Usopp are like, wow, he must like make bank if he's able to just hand money out like this.
That's a Nami reaction, yeah.
But the old woman explains that nope, he's dirt poor, and he sold his daughter to the capital, and she's his daughter Toko. This is the reveal that Yasu is Toko's father, and the work that Toko does at the pleasure hall as like an assistant, the money she's making, she's sending back to town, and Yasu's giving it to everyone.
Like that abstract dream sequence she has of like good times with Daddy.
Yeah, we get that a little bit.
Very cute.
So everyone loves him. He is a saint, the old woman says. So back in Udon now, night has come, and the guards are just kind of getting the people in the fighting ring. They're all getting kind of tired, and they're basically like telling Luffy to go to bed. Like, just go to sleep. We'll fight tomorrow. Jeez.
He's so angry, Luffy, the whole time.
Hyo asks Luffy why he even wants to fight Kaido so bad after getting clobbered. And just in case, Luffy, he looks around, he sees that there's still guards up and watching them. So he just uses Conqueror's Haki to just knock them right out. Really cool sequence. And he's explaining the 4 emperors to Hyo. Like, hey, do you know what the 4 emperors are? Well, they're the biggest, baddest pirates in the world. Kaido's one of them. I'm going to be king of the pirates, so I got to beat these guys.
I should say the Conqueror's Haki was drawn to look especially cool.
Yeah.
It's got like a cool, especially against the cool blue sky, the kind of golden burst of the Haki.
It feels like more of an attack than ever.
Those sequences were Sanda, the other foreign anime
Good eye.
that worked as freelance.
And then suddenly, Caribou's swamp appears. And I was excited. I was like, oh no, we're going to see Caribou. But then it's Raizo's face that emerges.
Wait,
from the
you
swamp.
were getting excited because we were going to see Caribou?
You know how this goes, Zach.
You like all the bad characters. I forgot
You know,
about that.
you know the scores, Zach.
Caribou can go hang out with Caesar.
Oh, he's way worse. Well, yeah, he's worse than Caesar, I think.
Can I just, I'll give Sam the time to gush about.
Yeah, I guess this is a
Maybe this
segment.
is the anime
This is the scene
specifically.
to do it.
Maybe it's the anime specifically that does this, but I feel incredibly uncomfortable
Yes,
anytime Caribou is on screen.
I think the anime did do
the choice in
did do a really good job at that. I think
it's the choice in soundtrack, the way he moves, the way he talks.
His tongue.
He is a diddler. I hate him.
I genuinely thought you were going to say, maybe it's the anime, but I'm starting to like Caribou this week.
No,
so gullible,
no,
so
gets
gullible,
worse.
Sam.
Official stowaway of the Straw Hat Pirates, Caribou.
So we get a cutaway of Yasu being Ushimitsu Kozo. So we're getting more information there that the kind of the Robin Hood figure that we've been talking on and off about throughout the arc it was Yasu this whole time. And back in the prison, Caribou is talking about how he would like to be Luffy's subordinate and he wants to get a ride. He says he's very, very sorry. Luffy just kind of looks at him and he's like, all right, well, if you've changed, then sure, it's fine. And Caribou is shocked. He's like, oh, this must be a trap, right? Like, I didn't think I'd get this far. And Hyo starts crying. He's very happy that he decided to cling to life after all these years. There were so many chances he had to give up, and now everything is starting to come together. And he bows to Luffy and he begs to join the fight. Raizo, who recognizes him as an old Yakuza figure from all those years ago, vouches for him. And Luffy's, obviously Luffy and Hyo are buds at this point, so why Luffy would never turn him down. And Hyo is explaining that most of the prisoners in Udon are there for treason against Orochi, so they would all make fantastic, soldiers in this army that they're building against Kaido and Orochi. And also in the prison are big important Yakuza bosses that Hyo knows personally, and he can ask them for help. And Raizo was talking about how I was chatting with Kawamatsu back there, and obviously when we get this whole prison break thing figured out, he will be a good ally.
Yes,
well.
He's always in the shadows. He loves being in the shadows. So I'm sure he'll help.
We get his beautiful blushing cheeks, though.
A little bit more of him each time.
Luffy is very loudly excited to start breaking out of prison, even though he should be quiet at this point. It's like midnight, but too excited to hold it in. He's asking Caribou to get him something to eat, and Caribou's like, on it, boss, and just pulls out the big container of Oshiruko. And Luffy and the others, they just start digging in. And obviously we got to cut back to Big Mom, who's still very hungry. However, their group is
specifically for
pretty close to
Oshiruko
Udon now.
Yeah,
they're close to Udon now, and so things are going to start moving. And we know that Big Mom wants the Oshiruko, and that's being juxtaposed against Luffy licking his lips and going, "I'm going to stuff myself silly. I'm going to eat all of it."
Yeah, we're getting
that
to
brings us to the to be continued card.
Yeah, we're getting to the big stuff here, I think, from this act.
General thoughts on this episode, you guys?
I think that
Henry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, me. I thought that it's another good example of how the anime, to be honest, if done right, anime can be more impactful than black and white pages. Obviously, I love the manga, and a lot of people critique stretching stuff out and adding filler, and why can't it catch up faster to the manga? But I think this episode is a good example of why, if done correctly, that's really a good thing. This was a section of the manga that I felt I never felt it was boring, but I was just like, okay, so I wonder when some real stuff's gonna happen, right? Like, all right, Luffy's off training here, and randomly we're cutting back and forth to different characters just having conversations about when this war is gonna start. But in this one, like the extra buildup of Yasu, I think, is really, really good. Obviously, anime only viewers don't know the significance of this character yet, but they will very soon. And I think, you know, with all this extra buildup, you care about the character a lot more when you're going to need to care about the character a lot more. And then also, Hyoji at the end, you know, in the manga, I felt like it was just a line of dialogue, kind of, with him being like, "Oh, I'll lend you my support, Luffy," and I was like, "All right, that's cool." But in this episode, you know, with all the music and all the lighting and it's done in the moonlight, I just feel it's more emotionally impactful. Like I'm like, oh man, this like old, really big time Yakuza guy is, you know, like on his knees, and you know, the voice actor did a really good job just conveying like the emotion in the character's, you know, voice and everything. So I'm just sold a lot more, you know, of the significance and the impact, the depth of like the things that are happening to the characters and who the characters are. That's how I feel.
Steve, do you want to?
It's the best animated episode ever. One thing I do want to point out is I didn't realize that, you know, the events that are about to come up, I didn't realize that was taking place at night.
Yeah, that's my big takeaway from the episode, is that the getting to see the nighttime.
Yeah.
Like so that atmosphere gets lost in the manga often.
Yeah.
I
mean, I piggyback on what Henry said. I think the day and night thing is the most impactful part of the anime. When you get, you know, in that is that you don't get what time of day things are happening in the manga.
Steve, did you say everything you wanted to?
No, I just saying, like, this was like you know, this episode was pretty packed with content, and I think it was paced pretty well. I think it's like, I think, you know what, if you're gonna give more time to Luffy and Hyo fighting all these guys and the you know, in the sumo, you might as well make it look great. So you might as well make it like the most of it and make it fun, instead of just feeling like it's like, you know, these are just schmucks that are in the way of like the real fight. So that's, I'll give this episode a lot of credit for doing some cool stuff like that.
I have some random notes that
please.
All right, so
go for it. Yeah.
So my sequences, the sequences that our studio did, where I mentioned it earlier, but since this is the recap section, when Hyoji and Luffy are talking right after the quick Alpaca Man flashback, all the way through Luffy running at the screen and you know, punching the screen essentially before it cuts away to I think Chopper and then all talking. That big chunk of sequences was done at our studio. And time-wise, it's actually not long because it's an action sequence. It's cutting really quickly, but that's over a sixth of the cuts for the whole episode, even though it's all stuffed into a little chunk. I mentioned earlier about animation director changes to Luffy's face. There was one other thing that there was changes to, although this one 100% wasn't my fault. The back of Medillo Man, like Medillo Man's actual shell, in the model sheets there was kind of two versions. Like it was on the same page, but as he spun around, one was like the back is just totally round with the way it's drawn in the anime, right? Where it's like just a totally round back with notches. But there was another version where it was like kind of rings. There was like rings across the whole back. So I drew the whole thing as rings kind of. So some sequences didn't really change when they were from an angle that like you could kind of get away with it. So when Luffy is zooming, like flying down at him, there's one angle where Luffy's on the right side of the screen and we're looking like from the back of Luffy as he's swooshing down. If you look at Medillo Man's back, I kind of left the rings there, or they left the rings there. But on a couple other sequences when he's actually flying back and rolling across the ground, and then more specifically when he actually crashes into the crowd of people, that back I drew it kind of differently. So this is like only super crazy animation nerds would probably care about this insignificant little note, but I as an animator thought it was interesting. So I like adding multiple layers of shadows, right? So if you look at the sequence where Medillo Man actually flies back and lands on the crowd, everything in that has 2 layers of shadow, whether you look at like the clothing of the Kaido characters, their hair, their skin. There's always like normal color, shadow, and then secondary shadow, right? And it was that way on my shell too, but because they went in and they changed just that later, they didn't add the second layer of shadows like I do. So just that shell, it's the only thing on the screen that has only 1 layer of shadow. Also, in the same sequence, all of the sub characters were just drawn as like stick figures basically in the storyboards, so I could draw them however I wanted. So I used just basic general backs of characters for everything except one character, the character on the left side of the screen. I like Kaido's crew is supposed to be like, half like animal kind of characters. So I made one guy like a leech human, like his mouth is like a leech mouth with like, it's just like not a human mouth at all, and then he has spikes coming out the back of his head. So that's an original little leech human.
Leech Man.
Yeah, leech. He's Leech Man, an original Henry Thurlow One Piece character design.
That
appears for
there we go.
That appears for a few frames before crushed by Medillo Man flying back.
Sam, your mascot got crushed.
Also, this is interesting. So last week's episode preview had some of my sequences in it. One of them being the sequence where Luffy punches the screen. So in the episode preview last week, when Luffy charges up the new haki, the Ryuo that he's learning, and he punches the screen, in last week's episode preview, that was a pink aura, right? Just like Hyoji's. But this week, when it actually aired, they changed that. They changed it to yellow. So I have no idea why they did that, but here's my guess. My guess is that the pink aura is probably like a perfected Ryuo, right? So we're heading in the direction of eventually Luffy's gonna get that pink aura, right? Like the Sakura blooming kind of effect, because that's what Hyoji can do right now. Whenever he does it, it's pink.
I think in the opening, isn't it? Isn't it pink in the opening? I'm trying to remember now.
It is. I think it is pink in the opening. Yes. So the opening is this is just a guess, but is probably showing off perfected Ryuo, right? But Luffy can't do perfected Ryuo right now. So in the actual episode, every time Luffy has been trying to use it, his aura is yellow. So they changed that sequence to yellow. So if you look at the episode preview of last week versus the episode, that sequence, the compositing and colors are completely different, actually, even though it's the exact same sequence. Because someone probably caught, like they probably for the next episode preview were like, oh, okay, that's fine, that works. But then probably even from the episode preview, some director was probably like, hold on. He can't do it this way yet. We have to change that. He's trying, but he's not getting it. How do we do that? Well, let's make it a different color. It is probably what happened. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No. Good to know.
All right.
Oh, also, real quick, I always mention this. Last thing. I always mention this for whenever I do the anime recaps, who the animation director is. So in this episode, the animation director was Kazuya Hisada, who was actually the character designer for One Piece during the Shabudi archipelago and and the episodes after that, probably Amazon Lily and stuff. And he was chief animation director during the Punk Hazard arc. So this was like the #1 guy during the Punk Hazard arc, came in to be animation director for this episode. And his credits are pretty much, I mean, he's worked on a handful of things, but pretty much for all intents and purposes, it's just all old school Dragon Ball Z until One Piece started, and then he's been all One Piece. So like he's worked on those 2 shows primarily forever.
Is there anything else anyone want to chime in before we get ready to pack up and move on to the next segment?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Move on to the next segment
All right,
then.
Hey everyone, joined again with Ed, Steve, Roger, and Kendra, and we're here to talk about what will happen. Will One Piece ever end? And if it does, big if, how do we see it happening? I'm pretty
sure Blackbeard way back in Jaya said One Piece will never end.
I have wanted to edit that panel and have just been way too lazy and also don't have enough Photoshop skills to feel like I could do that with a convincing enough font. But someone out there should do it.
Well, yeah, they'll never stop the One Piece. Have no fears. We'll have stories for years like Usopp becomes a robot.
Okay. How quickly did it take us to get into the Simpsons reference there? No, I'm very excited to talk about a subject that comes up a lot, and that's the end of One Piece. And I think a few months ago we talked about this a little bit, but I made a thread way back about how often Oda has said One Piece will end, while it in fact contradicts often when it will end. For example, he said this will be a 5-year series when he started, and here we are 23 plus years, and it continues. So I'll start out, go around the room. When do you think it would end, and when do you want it to end? I'm going to start, Roger.
Sure.
With you on this.
So
Yeah.
I actually just did a whole 2-hour long live stream discussion on this very topic about a week and a half ago. And the conclusion I came to is I actually think the editors aren't lying this time. I truly believe we're probably going to be done with the series around 2026, 2027. And that's not only when I think it's going to end, that's also when I think I want it to end. I would love to see the 30th anniversary of One Piece in the manga, but I think I don't know. I don't see it going for 30 years in the manga. I think at the pace we're moving at right now, and I'm sure we're going to get into a whole bunch of different discussions, I really do feel like we are getting into the end game, and at least all of the final puzzle pieces between the stuff with God Valley and Laugh Tale and, this final war and Kaido and Big Mom finally declaring they're going after the One Piece. It just really does feel like we're nearing the end. And again, nearing the end in One Piece terms is still, like I said, 5-6 years. But I do legitimately think that's about when it's going to end.
I think
2027
Sam
wouldn't be the 30th anniversary. So.
That's
would it
true.
be?
Would, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well then there you go.
It
Boom, there
started
you go.
in 97. The anime started in 99.
I mean, I would add that I think Sam said something like it's funny. So Haikyuu recently ended, and people obviously are upset about it, but understand oh, okay, it's the end.
Sure.
But yet we're in 2027, One Piece may end, and everyone freaks out. Buildings get set on fire. It's insane. Just for the quick,
Who was it? Maybe was it Sam or someone else? I forget if this was in a DM, but it seems like the trend lately is certain manga like Haikyuu. It's you get a 2 weeks notice that it's ending.
right?
And
That's
One
you're
Piece
literally saying the same thing I just said, but it's fine, Steve.
No, I'm just saying One Piece literally pulls a 3D2Y.
Right.
It's
Right.
It's
That's true. That's true.
it gives you plenty of time to prepare.
Well,
if what
Kendrick, yeah, go for it.
if One Piece gave a 1 week warning, people would die. If it was by the way, it's over next week.
Could
Hearts
you
would
imagine?
explode.
Oh my goodness.
Sick days would be used.
I would,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what sick days are for. It says in there, if One Piece ends without announcement.
I had to work when Haikyuu ended, and I was so mad.
Yeah, that's a good question. Whether I would take a day off when One Piece ends, if it's on a weekday. So I want to give the full timeline too. 97, he said 5 year, 5 years. 2006, Oda said he didn't know. 2007, he said however many years it takes. 2009, he said since it's already been decided, there's a part of me somewhere that wants to hurry up and draw the last image, but in reality, I don't think that will be for a long time. 2012, the editors said 60%. 2014, they said 60 to 70%. In 2016, they said 65 and 70% in the same month, and 80% in 18, in 100 or so volumes in 19, and 5 years also in twice, 2 different times in 19. So that's about where we are. Kendra, when would you like to see it end, and when do you think it will end?
I would say, part of me wants to say 2030, like 10 more years, but I am kind of liking 2025. But,
To be fair, I thought 2020 sounded like a cool year, and look at how it's gone.
That's true.
Ed, do you have a...
Yeah, if I thought about it like up till this point, or maybe if you'd asked me yesterday, I would have said like 5 years. But I have to take the over, and I like the Oda likes round numbers. I think he wants that 30th anniversary, so that's what I think he'll end.
That would be a big... I mean, trying to think of how many series really get that, besides like Kochikame and stuff that,
Yeah.
Steve, what about you? When do you think it'll end, and when do you want it to end?
I'm saying that's what I want. That's what I want it to end too. I'm sentimental like that.
No, yeah, I like that too.
I have a feeling maybe like in 2026, but I would love to just make it to 2027 and get that 30 year. That'd be dope. But I feel like we keep pushing the number 5 back again and again, but that makes a lot of sense. But then again, you got to think about in 2015, we were seeing the end of Dressrosa. And since then, we've had Zoe, Whole Cake Island.
Yeah,
exactly.
Now,
I think that's the interesting point, right? Is that
half of Wano?
The editor mentioned that we're entering like the final arc or something, right? The comment that was recently made. And I heard a lot of people saying, oh, that means like the story arc after Wano is the last story arc. And I really don't think that's the case. I think he's referring to like the final saga. So like right now, we're in the Four Emperor saga, right? And that the saga following that will include, I'm sure, a multitude of different story arcs of varying length, but that ultimately that last saga will last about 5 years. Like I think
it's pretty clear that like the Wano is the end of the Four Emperors saga.
Exactly.
Like, you got 3 of them in the same place at one time, and what Blackbeard's doing.
And realistically, with all the moving parts that are happening in Wano right now, he could go in a number of different directions. Act 3 could end in 5 chapters. It could end in another 15 or 20, right? And then we've got all of Act 4 and Act 5. So we've got plenty of content for the next
6 and 7
year and a half, right? So I feel like, realistically, if you look at that 5-year gap, and just like Steve mentioned, all the stuff that happened since 2015, I think it's completely reasonable. And then if you do look at it in that way, and you guys reminded me that, 2027 would be the 30th anniversary, that, well, if we go through the rest of 2020, maybe all of 2021, at the beginning of 2022, Wano ends, and we move into that final story saga, there's your 5 years. That takes us to 2027. And there you go. Everybody's happy.
Well, that's like, just for a second, I want to step back because we're throwing around these years, which, I mean, to be fair, I think they're all very good predictions. And in fact, I agree with Ed's. I like the round 30-year number. But what were we all doing 7 years ago back in 2013? Although, to be fair, I was doing exactly the same thing I'm doing right now. But it's like 7 years is a very long time. I mean, Oda just turned 45, I think, so he'd be 52-ish. I think his January 1st. It should be easy to remember his birthday there. There's a lot that can happen. We obviously don't know. So next question I want to ask everyone is I want to kind of differentiate this from the usual theory video or podcast. What do you think you need to see between now and the year 2027 when this ends, as we're all calling it now? What is it you feel like you need to see or what places you need to go, or what events you need to happen, in your opinion, before the end of the series? I'm going to throw that first to Roger. I know that's a big question.
Sure. Again, though, just covered it in that live stream in the exact
Perfect.
phrasing that you just made it, so I'm ready to go.
Damn it. I'm accidentally stealing things.
Yeah, no.
That's
It's good. It's totally good. Like I said, it's fresh. Yeah, we kind of went over that during the stream, and I mentioned things that I feel like we need to see within that final saga. And I think one really big one is Elbaf. I think that is one story arc that's been thrown around pretty much as long as Wano Country, if not more so. And I think there are so many really specific story ties in Elbaf, with growth for Usopp, finding out more about Big Mom's connection to Elbaf, and into the, what was the name of the orphan house that was on Elbaf? I forgot.
Mother Carmel's
Sheep's House.
Thank you
No, I
very
think
much.
it was-
Yeah, Sheep's House, exactly. So I think we'll find out a little bit more of that, the sort of the hierarchy of the giants, and ultimately, I feel like we all talked about this during the episode in which it happened, but we saw that giant tree, right, that's on Elbaf,
Yeah.
and I have a feeling that tree is somehow going to be connected to Adam, potentially an Eve tree, and that'll probably give us a lot of that final exposition that we need before that really big push to get to Laugh Tale. And I've also seen a lot of people saying that, God Valley needs its own arc, but I almost kind of feel like God Valley, Roadstar Island, and Laugh Tale will all be part of sort of like a Laugh Tale story arc that encompasses getting to the end of the Grand Line, Nami arriving on that last island, creating the map, finding the final road poneglyph, being followed by, if there are any emperors left after the end of the saga, being followed by them to Laugh Tale and a confrontation with Blackbeard. I think those are all essentials. And then following a Laugh Tale
I gotta
arc.
write these down. Yeah. So no, I'm keeping a list of like what our expectations are. So in 7 years, I could go back to this and see
perfect.
how. Yeah. So you got Elbaf, Blackbeard, Lodestar Island.
Yep.
Enru coming down from the moon.
Well, that's for Ed. Let Roger give his own opinions.
But I'll get to that actually too, because I want to talk about that. No, I think obviously the last big one is a final war against the world government. I think ultimately that is the final villain of the series. I think a lot of people imagine that Blackbeard's going to be that, and I would be completely content with Blackbeard being the final villain. But I think Blackbeard is sort of in my eyes going to be the final villain of sort of the pirates side of story.
Yeah.
And that the world government and taking down Emu and the Gorosei and sort of like the establishment, that's going to be what ultimately like frees the world. It's finding out whatever the truth at One Piece was, and then eventually, letting the rest of the world in on it. So I think that'll be like the final arc.
Yeah, I think the thing that's most interesting about Blackbeard as a character generally is that he's kind of the mirror image of Luffy, but he's also not. He's not the man. I mean, like a lot of One Piece and a lot of major, like Star Wars, I feel like originally, at least as an example, was let's fight the man, let's take down the man. The government is unquestionably that entity in One Piece. So I agree. I'm very curious. I don't know how he's gonna be able to break down. Okay. He needs to defeat Blackbeard because he's setting that up, like he's telegraphing that.
Sure.
But he also needs to defeat the government. I'm very curious, how is he going to accomplish both of those? Is it going to be at the same time? Is it going to be separate? Is it going to have to be the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing, where he has to like team up with Blackbeard to beat the government? Like there's a lot of possibilities out there. I'm very curious as to how it's going to go.
May I interject?
Steve, please.
I just want to back up Roger with that's one of my big thoughts going into this episode was that I no longer think Blackbeard is endgame boss, and I think that's because of the introduction of Emu and just more of the Elder Stars. But I think Blackbeard is going to be like the final boss in terms of obtaining the One Piece. Right. I think that's going to come down to the Straw Hats and the Blackbeard Pirates. Well, and I just have this thought that acquiring the One Piece is not the ending to the series.
That's what I was going to ask.
After acquiring that treasure, that's going to lead into the final arc, which is the final confrontation. I don't want to necessarily say battle, but I'm probably war with the world government, with the nobles, with Emu, and I think having the One Piece is going to play a huge factor in that.
Kendra, what do you hope to what needs to be checked off for you
Uh,
going to the end here?
First off the bat for me is Laboon. I feel like that might be kind of after the fact, like after the end almost, kind of having Brook reunite.
I do want to see that. Yeah.
I wrote Elbaf down as well, just because like it's for Usopp and now also for like kind of Big Mom, like tying off those loose ends. What the hell the D means? I don't know if that's an event, but I just want to know. I want a Void Sentry flashback.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know like how it would really fit in, or if it would almost be like when they find the One Piece, they get that flashback, or we might get one like even this arc. Who knows?
Toko. Am I saying the right way? I always mix them all. Toki. Sorry, I always mix Toki, Tama, and Toko. They're very sorry. It's Toki.
My favorite R&B band.
No, Toki is that. I think we had a lot of this discussion, Kendra. I know, not just in the upcoming Fight Together episode, but when the flashback was going on. I'm really hoping we do get something with her, or at least some sort of like, I don't even want to say cameo because I hope it's one level above that, where she is like kind of the key to seeing the Void Century through present eyes. That's why I was hoping that maybe she's still alive in the present day. There's that possibility exists.
Because I just think it would be cool to maybe see a bit of like, because I guess like I kind of hope that the One Piece has like different meanings to it. Kind of like the bell was originally for like communicating with the dead, and then it became like kind of communicating with like Nolan. So I think it'd be kind of cool if there's like another layer to the One Piece, or like several layers, and like Luffy kind of interpreting it differently. And then I'd like to meet Shanks again. I guess today I was just thinking about it, of having like if Shanks just like kills Blackbeard and then they have to fight Shanks, even though like it would kind of suck. Definitely, because like Blackbeard's been so built up, and like Luffy kind of like has to fight him again.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up. Can I interject real quick?
Roger.
Sure.
So basically, the way we discussed it on that stream was that I could totally see actually Blackbeard killing Shanks. And Luffy, ultimately, because Luffy up to this point, he's never killed anybody, right? At the end of the day, Luffy's still Luffy. He always says he's going to beat somebody up. And I think it would really take something massive for Luffy to actually kill someone, or to the very least lead to someone's demise. And I think Blackbeard tailing, or Shanks tailing Blackbeard, who's tailing Luffy, which sort of brings them all to Laugh Tale at the same time. I could totally see a situation in which Luffy and Blackbeard fight, and, primarily thematically throughout all the different story arcs, Luffy has lost multiple times to the main villain before actually beating the main villain. If we're going to see some type of loss for Luffy, I could totally see one of those losses being Luffy fighting Blackbeard, Blackbeard culminating some massive power, showing off a new technique, ultimately potentially leading to Luffy's death, and then Shanks stepping in, Shanks dying at Blackbeard's hands, and Luffy never being able to give the hat back to Shanks. And for that to happen on Laugh Tale, where obviously there's some type of connection between Straw Hats and the Void Century and the history of the world and all this stuff, I think would be such a great poetic moment. And I'm sure, Oda could do any number of things, right? Like, this is just spitballing ideas. But that is realistically how I see those characters sort of all tying together and having their stories there before getting to that final war. Because I really do think, because this is called the, Versus for Emperor saga, I do feel like this is going to be the beginning of the end and taking down all the other emperors. And, within the timeline of the story, if, say, for example, Kaido goes down in Wano country, Big Mom tails him to Elbaf, you get more of a story connection with her. She goes down in Elbaf. Blackbeard chases Luffy to the final island, and eventually sort of sneaking his way into Laugh Tale by following however they get to the island. Shanks hearing about this, because I still presume that that's the pirate Shanks was talking to the Gorosei about, and then ultimately culminating in the three of them meeting at Laugh Tale.
And I guess Luffy kind of he's like the fifth emperor.
Right.
But
he's the fifth, fourth emperor.
Yes. But if Shanks dies, then he kind of becomes like an emperor for real. Because right now it's kind of like a title by the newspapers. I just also want to see like normal people's reactions because we haven't really got that because they've been in Wano.
Well, which is an isolated country, so who
Yes,
even knows
yeah.
what's gonna get out at the end of the day? Yeah.
And finding Poseidon / like maybe having, because there's the ancient weapons. I feel like Vegapunk probably has like new weapons or something. That could be a cool twist of being like, well, we have these ones instead, but I have like no idea what those would be. I kind of want a Garp flashback and just have it like not like everything, because like maybe it's better for him to be a bit mysterious. But I think it'd be interesting to see kind of him chasing Gold Roger a little bit, since like we've been told about it, but we haven't really. I guess I'm trying to think if we really saw. I don't think we really saw. We saw like maybe a little bit when we learned he was fighting the Navy at one point.
And the God Valley stuff recently.
Oh yeah, God Valley. Yeah, definitely. But I think that would be interesting to see, even just like a snippet of it. I guess I also the all blue I think would be cool to see. I know a lot of people think that the all blue probably is kind of a result of the One Piece, maybe. But I don't know. I'd like it to kind of maybe come into play a lot more and have like Sanji kind of be like reminded of it, as it hasn't been a thing at all lately. I guess also a new navy under Kobe, like not Kobe as like admiral. I know he wants to be like fleet admiral or something, but that might be interesting. I wrote down Luffy awakens, but I don't really care about that because like it might happen, but I guess
Well, Luffy turns everything into a bounce house.
yes,
We've
I guess
all
my
been
other
hoping
thing-
for
yes.
that.
My other thing might be that maybe I hope that the 4 points at the X for the X. I hope that like Nami actually gets to do some like navigating stuff for that, rather than having it be like easy connect the dots. Having like
Yeah.
Totally.
or like I think that like maybe they might have to go back to East Blue, or like it's kind of just like something really wild. Like I really want the crew to kind of each have their moments to shine. But
I mean, I don't know if Oda specifically commented on this, but I like the idea that we're going forward on the adventure. I'm hoping we don't go backward. Like literally, I don't think the Straw Hats going back to where they've already been makes too much sense as far as the East Blue thing is concerned. I do hope that Nami has to, do some real navigating stuff to get to the One Piece. Otherwise, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, that was easy."
I was going to say on that topic, though, there has been contextual evidence that they are probably going to go back to Whole Cake at the very least. Because Katakuri specifically mentioned, you're going to come back here and beat Big Mom, aren't you?
No, I think. Well, first off, I mean, Big Mom is on Wano right now.
Of course.
So, yeah, she's right in front of them. But I think even if he does go backward and see everyone again, I think that's like as an epilogue, less of a, now we're going to go back and see everyone we saw before. Or that we just see all these characters appear in the final war whenever that happens.
Right.
I kind of, one quick thing, sorry. I kind of
Sure.
like the idea of going them. I kind of like the idea of them going back, and also just that in the Roger flashback, we saw them flying or sailing by Tequila Wolf or whatever the
Right.
prison
Yes.
bridge.
Yep.
Yeah, the 500-year or whatever that was. Yeah.
That they might have to go back there, or even just to Fishman Island, because like there was supposed to be a road poneglyph there, and now it's not. So like part of me hopes they just go back so we can see a lot of people, but it probably makes more sense to have it be like after the end.
I don't think you're off though, because the stuff with Fishman Island would be directly under Marijoa, so a return to take down the world government.
That would also
totally
have to
happen
do with the Oars people and rearranging the world, because the world is the red line in particular is sort of designed, and I think it's not going to be there anymore. It's going to be destroyed.
Ed, I want to ask you the same question.
I was thinking in specific about the Straw Hats' dreams and fulfilling their dreams. So of course I am biased. I would like to see the Zoro and Mihawk fight like 1-on-1 if we can make that happen for some reason. I think he sort of needs that. Yeah, and also ever since going back to the Thriller Bark and the first introduction of the Oars people, I think sort of the way the moon interacts with that, and like sort of breaking down the way the world has been constructed that's what I'm looking for in the end of One Piece. And also Luffy's mother. I think there's a resolution there, I think, with Garp as well as I think he needs to like have an emotional moment. I think, and I think it's a big mystery that's left out there, and I'd like to see that addressed. So yeah,
I'm still so satisfied personally with the Don that I don't like feel like I need to see that as much. But yeah, I mean that is a good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see the grandma. I'm convinced it's Gloriosa.
Is
the
yeah,
lady Nan.
Elder Neon, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We've been talking a lot about in the Fight Together episodes, like the idea of found family and how important that is for One Piece. That's kind of why I'm like resigned to that. If I don't get an answer to who Luffy's biological mom is, that is not going to be an answer that I'm sad that I didn't get, at the end of the day. That's not one of the things I need checked off.
Because not to rain on that parade, just what is the identity of Luffy's mother gonna tell us about Luffy that we already don't know?
See, that I don't think it would be for Luffy. I think it would be character development for Dragon. Because we still don't really know like what Dragon's motivations are and how he turned into the #1 revolutionary after being the kid of Garp. Like there's definitely a story to be told there, and I think some type of connection with like either his wife being murdered or partner being murdered could ultimately lead to that, and then finding out sort of the truth behind all that and how Luffy ended up where he did.
And then we head to I mean, this is a topic we discussed, Kendra, as I know you could attest, a lot in Fight Together. So as a preview, I guess, since although we've recorded it, it hasn't come out yet. But like the idea of a mom dying for the sake of like to help the plot of Garp or Dragon or even Luffy, what is that really doing at the end of the day? I guess is also a good question.
Fridging. It's just for like drama's sake, and it's cool, and I definitely like the idea. But I would almost wish that she was alive and she just like went to safety, and she's like I don't know, because I definitely agree. Like Dada,
maybe she's just some normal person.
Yeah, that she just pieced out. She's like, know what? I'm gonna stay safe. I'm gonna love him from afar, or something. Like I think that might. I hope Oda does. But
that's kind of what happened. That's kind of what happened to Sabo, where he had amnesia. Which is the thing I could talk a lot about. But it's like it's just that you have to create an excuse for why this person hasn't entered the story already when everyone they love and care about are so famous. And so, like in any other circumstance, you would have thought, oh, Luffy's mom maybe lost touch with Luffy and couldn't find him, or Dragon, or whatever it is. It's possible that she just works as a revolutionary, I guess, that she's just there. Or that she's someone famous that we just haven't put 2 and 2 together with. Ed, sorry, Steve. I want to ask you, what do you want to see from One Piece before it ends?
There's been a lot of good answers already. I'm trying to think of anything.
You could say the same answers, because I mean,
no, it's like, well, just to make things interesting, no, I think a lot of you already have said some really cool stuff. I was wondering, because people always thought like, oh yeah, the ending, it's going to be the Straw Hat Pirates versus the Blackbeard Pirates. It's going to be some classic shonen pair ups, and that has not been Oda's MO for like the last 10 years. And I just can't help but question, will we even still get that? Is that even the kind of story he likes to tell anymore? Or is he just not getting bogged down with doing like shonen fights like that in the current arcs, just so when he could finally get to that, you could have an entire chapter of like Zoro versus hell, I don't even know. Like, I guess I'm back and forth now, wondering if Zoro would fight Shiryu or Sanji would fight Shiryu. Preferably not, because I want to hear Sanji talk about how he really wanted that devil fruit. I don't want to.
Not again.
I don't want to hear that conversation ever again.
I forgot he had that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's just, it's one thing that, like, if
Epsilon's dead,
given the time.
Good. Yes. Thank you, God. That should replace Ace's dead, because it's good news.
No,
would you say it's big news?
But,
thank you.
It's not as funny though.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's
the funny.
It's more like, oh, thank God.
In general.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank God he can't hurt anybody anymore. I would just say I would like to see like a classic old, just like, and the visual I have is just that color spread of the Straw Hat Pirates versus Cypher Pole #9. Like,
Yeah.
I will sit patiently if we get something like that. Like, I don't mind all this cutting around of Ulti getting the headbutts with Luffy and then gets KO'd just so we could get the plot moving forward. I will gladly be patient.
Good, because you're gonna have to be if it ends in the year 2027.
I want
Kendra.
CP9 to I want CP9 or like the people who were in CP9 to come back again.
Well, they are. They're in CP0, but I mean, like,
Well, we don't know if all of them
Not
are.
all.
oh, that's true. That's true. Well, everyone wants Fukuro coming back. It's the way One Piece is set up and everything we talked about in the past, having all of the characters in some regard play a role in the final story, I think is something that makes a lot of sense. I'm also a big subscriber to Ed's entire world building theory, and I mean that literally as well as figuratively. That the world was built by continent pullers, and Onigashima, I think we've talked a little bit about that head looks an awful lot like a lot of the Orz's heads that we've seen, I think.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of really good potential to come out of that. I mean, I just want to talk briefly, and Roger, I know you mentioned it, and one of the reasons I'm always really happy to have you on is because I think we exist in two slightly different worlds, YouTube and our old person podcast world. But it's important to hear because, like, I think personally, at least, the stake I put in the official naming of like arcs and sagas, it's a really difficult thing, especially recently, because everything is so intertwined with each other now. I mean, to the point where they keep mentioning it in the plot. Like I think the last chapter, they're like, we saw you on Punk Hazard, then Dressrosa, and they're like naming the previous arcs in what we would call this saga.
Sure.
But on the other hand, they're constructs that are created by fans to understand how do we break up all these stories. They're much less clear than they used to be back in the day. So I'm like, so the one of the reasons we're doing this theory episode is because the next volume of the One Piece magazine, number 10, is going to be about, as you said, Roger, it's going to be about that final push to the end. And I think it's possible for all these things to happen in what we would call the final saga and yet be all over the place. It takes 7 years or whatever it'll take to put together.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at even just what's happened during the Four Emperor saga with Zoe and Whole Cake Island and Wano, I mean, Whole Cake and Wano are vastly different stories, like, from one another. Vastically,
Yes.
I made up a word right there. I don't know what that was.
No, I like it.
But I mean, they're vastly different stories, and I think even Zoe, when you look at it compared to a really long story arc like Dressrosa, right? You have short arc relatively, with Punk Hazard, big arc with Dressrosa, a little bit of an info dump, shorter arc with Zoe, back into what ultimately became a pretty big arc with Whole Cake Island, now into Wano country, which is massive. I think if you look at it like that and you go, okay, well, we're due for some type of smaller info dump like story arc.
Exactly,
I think realistically that could be Elbaf. I know there's a lot of people who want that to be like a massive adventure arc on the level of Skypiea. But ultimately, I feel like a lot of the stories that we're interested in talking about, like just based off of what everyone's been saying, could be answered in Elbaf, right? In talking about the road poneglyph, history of the devil fruits, the tree, everything.
The ancient weapons.
Ancient weapons,
Ancient
totally.
weapons. Uranus, we haven't. And that we thought that, like, the theory that we had in the One Piece connection was that could be the giant related thing, too. So that would be interesting.
It was a big deal when Luffy stole Buggy's giants from his company.
Still angry about that.
Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right. So I was watching a bunch of Vicky the Viking stuff. It's Vicky the Viking's fine, but it was one of Oda's inspirations. Yeah, I mean, it's a very what is that 70s kind of style cartoon, with a really good Japanese dubbed opening, like for them. But anyway, I remember that a lot of Oda's inspiration comes from Vikings and from that the stuff that we were going to see on Elbaf.
Yeah.
So I'd be really, really, really upset if he didn't get a chance to kind of flex his muscles in that. And
It's like he has to do Elbaf.
yeah,
right?
I think we
that's
all
like a done
agree.
deal. It has to happen.
It's like a part of me is thinking like, I wonder if just, if like, Big Mom's flashback and that tease of the two giants from Ennie's Lobby, names are escaping me at the moment.
Moimo and Kashi?
Kashi and
Yeah.
yes. Like when they asked Usopp, like, hey, you want to just come with us back to Elbaf? And it was almost like, is Usopp just gonna go to Elbaf instead? Like he said he wanted to go. And like I almost wonder if that's like, well, that was your chance to go to Elbaf if Usopp went, but he didn't. He stuck with Straw Hats, so you don't get to see Elbaf. But I think we got to see the Straw Hats set foot on that island. It's like it's saying it's too much wasted potential, but also like Oda was so inspired by that stuff. How could he not do more of it?
Yeah.
But by the way, sorry to cut you off. I'll do this very quick, Kendra. But we talk about arcs. I have a giant spreadsheet, of course I do, of every arc in One Piece and the amount of chapters it is. Wano has just surpassed Whole Cake Island as a story arc. If you split up Water 7 and Enies Lobby as the second longest right now. Dressrosa at 102 chapters. Wano is 80. Whole Cake Island has 78. I mean,
it's funny that it's funny that you just mentioned that too, Zach.
Yeah.
It's because I saw that the other day when someone asked me what my top 5 arcs were. I'm like, what was my ranking again from 2015? And I saw that spreadsheet with these pie charts and all that. And I'm like, what the hell is this?
and then I apologize.
It was like, I seriously, I feel like that was like me opening the vault with the giant straw hat. It's just the giant pie chart.
Oh my god, I forgot about that hat. The hat makes me angry. Like it's so
Kendra,
cute.
why does the hat... That's your little therapy here. Kendra, why does the hat make you angry?
Why is it so big? Why is it in a freezer? Why? This is big whys. I just hate that.
Kendra, sometimes we have to be okay not knowing the answers to things.
Well, I mean, Kendra,
Yes.
you know who would
And
wear
straw
a
hats
giant
are-
straw hat would be a giant. That could be something that gets
Yeah.
addressed in Elbaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
And also, like, if it is scientifically known that straw hats can be preserved for much longer in the freezer, and,
I mean-
and still be fresh.
That's a very good question. How long does straw hold
Oh, I
when not in
Googled
a
this
freezer?
once.
Oh, you did?
I
Good.
Googled
I'm
this,
glad,
but I don't
Kendra.
remember now.
What are you doing if you don't even remember? Okay.
What's the nutritional value of straw?
I was gonna say my troll theory is that there's just gonna be a Davy back fight at Elbaf just to mess with all of us.
Here, wait. I'm
That's
looking.
Return to Foxy.
So this comes from a website, I kid you not, called the Fedora Lounge. I just looked up how long does a straw hat last.
Ooh, don't want to hang out there.
No, you don't. Let's see the answers. It's like a forum, so I'm sure these are really good answers. Does anyone?
Oh yeah. Oh Zach, jeez, you're selling me.
Oh no, it's from
Selling me more and more.
2014. These answers. 21.
2014.
Someone has a 20+ year Monte Cristi hat that's only fraying a bit, so it lasts at least 20 years. But maybe this one is like 900 years old.
Oh my
You know.
god.
Should I respond to this thread from 2014 and ask how long does a 900 does my 900-year straw hat, should that be in a freezer? It's
You
very
definitely
large.
should.
for me.
Oh, and that reminds me again that I wish Toki had noted Roger's hat, or Shanks's hat at that point. Because I
Yeah.
wonder if she recognized or if she would even know, or she wouldn't make the connection because it's just a hat.
I've seen a very large version of that hat before.
Yes.
Would have been nice to see Toki do more.
Yes.
Oh yes. Just
Say that
underline
again.
that. Just put that yes.
Well, and I think
Sorry
the
to
problem
rag
is
on it.
the problem is, and I think I said this in a future episode, but she breaks the series a little. I think is the problem is that she knows a lot of the answers probably
Yeah.
that we want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Too powerful.
Toki's
It's like
a
that
weird
one-
one. I mean, I could easily see them skipping over Toki entirely by the end of the series, or I could really see Toki being a massive focus. I think the weird thing is that seemingly Toki is dead, and my question is that, okay, well, if Toki died and had this time devil fruit, who has this devil fruit now? And I obviously, like, we're really close to potentially this theory coming true if it does end up coming true. But the idea I was throwing out there was, you know, there was the chapter in which Yamato mentioned that Kaido had him locked up and that for, 20 years, the handcuffs were on. And so he wasn't able to, and then it sort of cut out there. And I'd always thought, well, what if those are like sea stone cuffs and Yamato hasn't been able to use the devil fruit power that he's amassed, which is this time devil fruit, because that sort of stops that way in which the time devil fruit breaks the series, right? It's if the fruit was with somebody and was able to not be used because that person was sort of in confinement for all of those years, you don't have to worry about, well, is this person from the future? Who got sent to the future since then? And considering Yamato has Oden's notebook, that is something I would imagine they would be aware of, is Toki's devil fruit power.
Yeah, I don't
know
mind
how
that.
it would be.
Yeah, I don't know how
it would be incorporated into the plot going forward.
You think we'll see another user of the time fruit?
I don't think so. I think Oda's gonna chuck it just because it's.
That's a really overpowered fruit.
It is.
Yeah, it's really
it's
like
overpowered.
Sugars. Sugars was
Yeah.
sugar was a mistake.
Yeah, pudding's
But
right with the
it
memory.
Is,
totally.
It is more
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
than my theory, though. I'll admit.
What goes with your theory, Steve?
Oh, just what I thought happened to the time fruit.
I mean, I'm hoping Toki is alive or in transit through time at the moment, and we'll show. That's my hope. I don't know. I try with theories generally. I think we all have expectations we want in the series, and Oda is like there to nix those expectations and throw them topsy-turvy. Like that is like his main thing that he really loves doing. I forget which forget which series like has purposely had to rework. I don't know if it was Rick and Morty, Steve, but I'm trying to think. There are series that like when they see the fan theories online, they purposely when they purposely don't do that, even if that was the thing they were planning on doing. I don't think Oda is doing that, but at the same time, I think Oda tends to try and avoid some of our expectations. So I have a feeling that some of what we want to see from the remainder of the series might.
Greg has said in a recent stream that he was quoting Oda himself, and he said like he likes to be unpredictable, or it's like he doesn't want to be too predictable. Right. So.
I do.
Is that just? I'm starting to wonder. I'm like, is that just like a way of Oda telling fans like, stop theorizing shit. I want you to be surprised.
I do wonder if like maybe the fruit didn't appear until after the fruit was finished, because like Toki sent someone 20 years into the future. So then if someone else got the fruit, but then how does that reappear thing still happen unless like time is like.
She would have to, in order for it to work, she would have had to die either then or at a future date, and the fruit would have to come from somewhere else. The other person would have to eat the fruit and then either exist in the current day or have come back from the past. You could only move in one direction, we also know.
Right.
This fruit.
I just think Dr. Vegapunk got it. Just put it in a DeLorean.
I want Hirui to have it so badly, but she probably doesn't. But I wish.
I mean, I also like the idea of things being inherited, like inherited will, not through family, which is like kind of the thing we're seeing a lot with Yamato is a great example. Oh, and
that does remind me a little bit of poneglyphs. If like wondering if Yamamoto can read them.
Yamato.
Would be kind of cool.
Yamamoto is a combination of Yamato and Oda's hometown, Kumamoto.
And the guy that used to do the Dragon Ball music till he found out he plagiarized a ton of stuff.
I always had an extra toe to it. I'm sorry, Yamamoto.
An extra mo. An extra mo or an extra toe? What were you gonna say? What were you gonna say? Sorry,
I don't know.
Kendra, then Steve. Okay, Steve then.
I mean, this isn't so much about the ending of One Piece, but I worry a lot about Hiyori here because I feel like she's done next to nothing significant that's alluding to some dramatic buildup. Like we've seen so many little nuggets throughout Wano with Momonosuke, which is like the Surashi or whatever he says.
Sunach.
Like,
Sunachi.
yeah, that stuff, and just of course, Punk Hazard and all that.
Yeah.
There's been build up for him to do something, and we kind of saw something like that in one of the most recent chapters. Like, Hiyori's kind of just there, and I worry about that.
I want to pose this to you then, because I haven't been on for a little while, so I don't know if you guys talked about this already. But we're all in agreement. Orochi's definitely not dead, right?
Oh,
Right.
No way.
Yeah, there's like no way.
That's not how the snake thing works.
Yeah. So you
Hydra thing.
think he is dead?
No.
Oh, okay,
no,
okay,
no, no.
okay. I misheard.
way he
I
is.
heard Ed say it's not how the snake thing works, and I was like, wait, what? So
No, he's,
No.
he's saying
Like
that's
the
not.
legendary, they always have more than one head.
exactly. And so I feel like Hiyori's moment in the story, because again, Hiyori is still of the Kosuke family and is still like a rightful heir and could be shogun. I could easily see that tying in to however and whenever Orochi eventually returns, because I think it's really important for Momo and for Hiyori to have that moment against Orochi. Which, I mean, it made for an awesome moment in the chapter where Kaido, slices, or does he slice his head off or shoot his head off? I don't remember. He slices it with King's sword,
He
right?
grabbed King's sword.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it made for a really good moment in the chapter, but ultimately it was one of those things where I'm like, there's too many other story threads in Wano Country directly relating to him for that to really, truly be the end of that character.
Right.
So you get to see him die 8 more times.
That's what I was gonna say.
I'm cool
Everyone's
with that.
gonna get a
Orochi's
chance.
been a scumbag. I'm cool. Kill him
He
8
is
more
a
yeah,
times.
exactly.
We're gonna
Just
see
drown
everyone
him.
kill him, and it's just gonna be like one at a time. Okay, everyone in line. All the Akazaya samurai. That's all cut his head off.
Kendra, you actually just touched on a really good thing, though, which I want to
Yeah.
bring up. Drowning. The idea of somebody
Yes.
drowning. We have not seen that yet, and I do think that is going to be
Yeah.
reserved for a major character near the very ending. And I think we even talked about this on one of the old podcasts. My money is on Akainu. And I think what's going to happen is that Akainu is going to be the one to drown, and the magma hardens and becomes the island upon which the next Marines will
yeah.
build their headquarters after everything is said and done.
Building it on his corpse.
Yeah.
That's a
I
cool
think,
idea.
I remember theorizing that would happen to Blackbeard, but now I'm starting to wonder if that'll happen to Kaido.
I was gonna say.
Ooh, Kaido would be interesting too.
So you're a big fan. We all know. Everyone here knows that Roger is a big fan of Jack.
I am.
So I won't tell him what we've been saying about Jack recently. But I'll say Jack. We all thought drowned, but we found out was a fishman.
Sure.
Maybe that was foreshadowing for Kaido or for someone in Kaido's crew for that to happen to them.
Could be.
That's my
I guess,
crazy
like,
crackpot theory.
If Kaido's been trying to die and he hasn't tried drowning himself yet,
He's an idiot then, right? I mean,
Yeah. Right.
that's the,
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say the same thing.
What?
Dude,
I
just
couldn't. Oh man.
walk into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
The
too
Dr.
tall.
Evil conversation.
I do want to clarify though. I want to clarify. I do not like Jack as a person. I like the mammoth idea,
I
but
know.
I just want it on the record. I do not like Jack.
Look, all we've been saying is that he's the Raditz of the Wano arc.
Right.
That's it.
I mean, if anyone likes these villains as genuine people,
Right. Right. You're reading this wrong.
meet other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're a good villain you're supposed to hate and think is a scumbag because they are. They're supposed to be. They're villains. So that's the next question I had. So we have like what we feel like needs to happen. What are like our crazy wanna happens before the end of the series? Like mine, I'll give you an example of one that I think about a lot. So I want to see a cowboy island, for example, because we got those color spreads where everyone's in their Western gear. Don't why not that? So like, yeah, what are some crazy things? Roger, I'll start with you.
Oh man. I mean, it was already brought up once, but Eneru, he's got to come back at some point, in some way.
He's gonna do a colony drop. That's like they're gonna shoot like with an ancient weapon to shoot the moon.
I'll write down Ed's.
I mean, to be fair, we don't know. They could pull a Dragon Ball Z next chapter, and Kaido might blast a hole in the moon, causing Eneru to come down during the fight in Wano Country. I mean,
someone drew that, and it was great. Oh no, someone drew Kaido blasting the moon away and Eneru falling out down. And
there you go.
I did not
and
see
realistically,
that
would
we
stop
talked
the
about
Minks
that
from going
recently.
Sulong, and so he'd be able to wipe them all out pretty handily.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eneru would be great. Funnily enough, another thing you guys already brought up, I would love a Davy back fight, like an actual real Davy back fight against characters that are scary. Like, what if the fight against Blackbeard at Left Tail ended up being a Davy back? Like, I think something along those lines would be fascinating to watch, and I think would give people a newfound appreciation of that old story arc.
I don't know. I think the fact that Foxy and Davy back fights appeared in a TV special is not bode well for that.
Probably.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, I think it goes to show we're way past that era when Kaido's like, yeah, you join my crew or you die.
Right.
And everyone's like, the Onya Wambanshu are just like, oh yeah, we'll join. We all long live Kaido. He's the best. Kaido #1.
And then one weird, just last crazy thing that I want to bring up is,
Of course.
we saw the gigantification stuff during Punk Hazard, and we know how important it is for Usopp to be like respected by the giants, and he wants to go to Elbaf and all this stuff. I don't know how they would make it happen, but I would love if Caesar Clown somehow developed like a temporary gigantification serum, and Usopp fights alongside the giants as a giant in Elbaf.
I'm gonna say, as long as it's not like that filler episode where Luffy becomes a giant because
God.
it's so gross.
just
It's so
watched
gross.
that.
Oh, we don't talk about that one with Lily Unstomach or whatever their name is.
Yeah.
No.
They announced the dub voice for that. I'm like, oh, they're up to that.
That was Film Z filler. And it's not
Ooh.
even the best kind of Film Z filler.
What does that have to do with Film Z?
There's Neo Marines who show up in that arc.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mhm.
I vaguely remember that.
The ninja.
Guy with
and-
weird arms.
and-
He had like he was a
and-
double joint, double elbow man.
Steve, what do you hope happens?
I think I answered that question, so I wanted to bring this up as a topic of discussion. We've talked about everything that'll happen within the story. I'm curious what some of your thoughts will be for the real world, what the real world will be
Good
like
question.
when One Piece ends or is coming to an end. Like, what do you guys expect?
Besides fans going nuts,
Oh,
right?
man.
Yeah, like Roger, like where? Let's say One Piece was ending in a couple years. Like, where do you see yourself and like the community reacting to that? And
Sure.
how would
I
you
mean,
want to deal with it?
This is not a popular answer, I'll tell you right now. A lot of people have been like, how could you say that? But I mean this legitimately. I am excited for the end of One Piece because I really want to do a reread of the whole series from beginning to end. And I want to like see all the different story ties leading back from chapter 1 to the very ending, and just see how everything ended up coming together. I think analysis of the series as a whole and just like looking over all the little Easter eggs that Oda hid for us all those years is now, especially now that I've been doing this like full time for 3 years, more fascinating to me than just doing like weekly reviews week to week of the chapters. Like, I think looking at the series as a whole, and I think you could look at a series like Totally Not Marks, which has been very popular on YouTube recently, in which he is going through the entirety of the series on like an arc by arc basis. And I kind of feel like that is the best way to sort of absorb One Piece once you know more about the story. It's to actually go back and look at all those major arcs and how things connected and the story seeds it was setting up. So, I mean, in that aspect, I'm really excited for the ending. But in terms of like the future of One Piece, like I'm assuming, Steve, you mean like spin-offs and potential prequels and sequels and things.
That and just what the response will be from like Shueisha and eventually Toei.
And then the
Just,
fans.
What events we'll see. Like
It's interesting because the past couple of years have really shaken a lot of things up, right? With the onset of Demon Slayer becoming as popular as it is. My Hero Academia right now in the manga is seemingly entering sort of like its halfway point. So there's a lot of stuff going on surrounding Shueisha and the other series in Jump that I am wondering if they would consult with some of the more popular series to say, hey, could you hold off on doing a big story arc so that One Piece could have this year or something like that during the year it finally ends. But I don't know. I feel like if we do end up going to that 30th anniversary in 2027, and that is the last year for the manga, I could see sort of a repeat of what happened over the past few years, right? Where we get the 30th anniversary of the manga. By that point, we'll get the 30th anniversary of the anime. Everything eventually wraps up. We maybe get like a year-long break, maybe a movie or something, and then eventually go into some type of One Piece Kai thing. I think that's something that to me is like an inevitability. I think there is eventually going to be
Absolutely
a condensed, maybe like 3-season One Piece that goes through everything with great pacing and beautiful animation, which gets like the top of the line studios.
Might be too fast. I mean, remember we're talking about like 1,500 chapters or whatever it is.
Well, I guess three seasons maybe, but like I don't know, 5 or 6. I mean, realistically, I think if we're gonna have like, it depends on the amount of episodes per season 2, but I thoroughly believe we're going to get some type of One Piece Kai related thing, and I think that's going to bring a whole nother wave into the series. And
we also have the live action series.
We got the live action series coming somewhere as well on Netflix, right? So yeah, I think there's actually a lot of stuff to look forward to. I don't know, the idea, especially on YouTube, gets brought up constantly of like, do you think there's going to be a sequel after everything's said and done? And I used to think that it was more likely that we'd get a Roger prequel, but considering what we saw with the Oden flashback, I don't think that necessarily would happen anymore. And I think it would end up being some type of sequel, or it would be a prequel in like the distant past, in like the Void Century or something like that.
Yeah, like Knights of the Old Republic kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think spin-offs feel more likely to me. Like, I feel like you could almost pick any random character in One Piece and create a whole series about them.
Sure.
The question is, when Oda's done, is there going to be anything left to be like worthy of being told? You know, in kind of that way. I'm super curious if that's going to be the case. I mean, Ed, do you have an answer to Steve's question as to like what you think the world's going to look like?
Like the real world?
The real world. How will everyone react?
I don't know. I feel like it can't possibly be bad. Like, with all that we know and all that we've seen with how Oda pays off these big world level questions in One Piece, I guess I have faith at this point. I think people are gonna rave about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being optimistic. I think people are gonna be very satisfied by the ending of One Piece because, like, I trust Oda to, like, he's had the ending in his head since the beginning of the story, and I think that's helped him a lot.
Yeah.
I think it also helps because, so like, there's definitely a contingency of the fan base, and I don't think they're wrong, that think the first half of the series, the pre-time skip stuff, is better than a lot of the. I mean, you could argue specifics, but that the pre-time skip was more consistent than the post-time skip, at least in its quality. And whatever your opinion on that, that's fine. But I think the fact that it's something that Oda has had in mind since the beginning at least bodes well for, I think, both the older fans and the newer aged fans, that it will be a combination of some of his old thinking and new thinking. And I'm super curious as to how that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to clear the way for Oda at the end. I think it's going to be really important. So, like, right now, like, Kendra, I think you're probably even more in tune with like what the goings on in the Shonen Jump lineup. I'm not sure versus me, but I know there's like at least 50 to like 70% of the series were like just started in the last year or two, that are currently running. And Shonen Jump tends to throw most of their weight behind newer stuff and new authors. And I mean, I think they've been really making that their priority lately. So I think if anything, in that year One Piece is set to end, I think they're going to be trying to really throw stuff behind the new authors as much as possible. I assume. Who knows what 2027 is going to look like, let alone the next month. But but yeah. It's a good question, Steve. Did that answer all of what you were looking for there?
I would say maybe to throw my hat in the ring.
Oh, yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
like,
Sorry, Kendra.
It's no problem. It would be cool to see kind of like that chapter it ends, the other manga in Jump like referencing One Piece. I think it's always like really cute whenever that happens. Like that happened especially with the end of that cop manga with the guy with the 3 eyebrow.
Kochikame, right? That's
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that would be really cute. And I guess like I feel like people like I don't know if Oda can really tie off all those threads. I kind of do want some stuff to remain mysteries or like and like everyone has a favorite character as well and like there's so many like side characters that I wonder if like Oda can really put like a nice bow on it. And he doesn't have to either. Like it doesn't I don't know. The ending of One Piece is just like a big question mark for me. And I'm like how do you even cuz I almost like don't want to know what the One Piece is. Or like I kind of hope maybe that even that Luffy might reject it and say like he doesn't like it, or like not I don't know, but just deciding like because I know it won't be friendship, but if like Luffy's like actually I like friendship better, fuck this gold, but
he
like,
could do that. That is a character.
But also that might be like too kind of stereotypical. I don't know. I like have it be the Pulp Fiction suitcase. That's the One Piece.
It is kind of like
what if it's something because Luffy wants to be the Pirate King, and the reason why he wants to be the Pirate King because he believes that to be the one person who is the most free. And what if like the One Piece is some sort of like position or responsibility, and it's like, well, this is what it's like to have the One Piece, and he's like, I'm good.
I guess
it's like I don't
the end of Stampede.
Like,
You're saying it's like the end of Stampede.
Right, he throws the lug goes over.
That's literally what it was kind of.
I saw that movie in theaters enough times, and to anyone that like threw up their hands when if you haven't seen Stampede at this point, I'm sorry, but when Luffy crushes that eternal pose at the end of that movie, anyone that throws up their hands, maybe you're just being enthusiastic, but if you were like sincerely angry about that decision, I don't think you understand Luffy. Yeah. So I maybe now that I think about it, since that did happen in Stampede, I don't want to see too much of a repeat.
Yeah.
That's true too.
Luffy is definitely like even comes down to when he saved Robin, because Robin's like, "No, just leave me here to die," and he's like, "Why the hell do you think I have to listen to you?" It's that's like what's so great about his character.
He's become more responsible though. Like I think he especially in this arc, I think he understands the burden he's carrying for the people that he's fighting for, not just the Straw Hats, but the Akazaya 9 and so forth.
Sure.
And history behind it more than usual, certainly.
What I've started to worry is that like the One Piece is just like a prophecies or something, because like Odin went there and then he came back and he's like, oh, we need to open it because Joy Boy's coming back, or Joy Boy 2.0 or whatever. So I worry that it's just like prophecies and that Roger got there and it said like, you are not the one, and he's like, oh well, fuck. So like,
the
I
Matrix,
hope that's not the case. Yeah, exactly. So like, that's what I worry about, and I really hope it isn't. But I feel like it's kind of been implied that there is some like prophecy, because like the prophecy that Toki said she got from Odin, as far as I can understand.
And Rayleigh said something like, "We didn't understand it, but
we were there too early.
We weren't." Yeah, we were too
right.
And the Ohara, we weren't the Ohara philosophers, so we didn't understand quite. I mean, I think for me, there's two sides to this. First, I hope when we do see the One Piece, it is something that kind of fits into something for each of the crew. That is a meaningful. It's like a really tall order. I don't know how that's going to happen, but it's like either each of the crew could use some of their ability to decipher whatever it is or figure out whatever. Or I also the whole thing about it, and I agree with Kendra. Like, there's a part of me that's like, oh, once the mystery's gone, it's like. When you fight to find out the mysteries of the universe, the mysteries of life, and if you find an answer to that, and the answer's, whatever it is, there's going to be a part of you that's like, oh, that's what it was?
I mean, it'll be Emu's sled. It was Emu's sled from when he was a kid, so.
There you go.
I would like it if Roger left something as well with the One Piece, like he added something to it, would be cool.
You mean like in Skypiea?
Yes, yeah, like that, like how he like carved onto it. So like adding something else. What was
He's
I
like,
thinking?
I got a good joke too. This is my joke. It's just Laugh Tale is a series of jokes left by people who found the One Piece.
There you go.
What gives me hope that it's not like prophecies is that like I think Rayleigh was saying like you might come to a different conclusion than we did.
Right.
That there's like a choice there, so that because we hope that it's not just like Luffy has actually been like following like a prophecy track this entire time. But who knows? Like honestly, who knows? Like Oda is gonna like pull like 5 tricks on me 10 times.
See
so,
that
100%.
that would be fascinating though if, like you said, it's some type of choice, right? And then going back to what Steve said, it's something where Luffy's like, well, I want to be the Pirate King. I don't care about all this stuff. Like I'm not here for prophecies. I just want to be free. And I don't want to speak it into existence, but there is like a 1% portion of my brain that thinks like maybe that is the end. Maybe Laugh Tale is the end. And this grandiose idea that we have of taking down the world government and all this stuff, that's just not something we're going to get. That it just ends with him getting there. We have some type of reasonable resolution that doesn't make people angry. But the idea that, yeah, Luffy rejects whatever the One Piece is and doesn't, go out of his way to reform the world and take down the world government. I think like there's too many plot threads set up with the world government for that not to be the case. But there is honestly a portion of me that does fear that's going to happen.
Well, I forget where it came from. I think Greg translated it from an interview or something, but the line was something like the final war is going to make Marineford look like nothing,
Right.
Or something along those lines. So I don't think your optimism is misplaced there. I think I think that 1% of your brain you could probably ignore, like
Nice.
all of our 1% of our brains,
Yeah.
that say stuff
Right.
like that.
and to go back to the silly things that we'd like to happen, I still like my Roger turned into a Sea King very silly theory.
No, I love
Just
that.
'cause
We talked about
it's the
that a lot
silliest
last
thing.
time. No,
Yes.
He's
But
a-
also just that like Roger's illness may be coming into play, and like I hope it's not something simple like, oh, Luffy's gonna die because of that disease too. I want there to be like a story, like I don't know, I want to be like surprised about something.
I do
I
feel
was
the
the
illness thing will most
Roger.
likely be wrapped up by Chopper in some way, though. That is Chopper's
Yes.
dream at the end of the day, is to cure every
That's
illness.
true.
So
and if he cures the main illness that got Roger, that would be something.
yeah,
Yeah. Hopefully we could get Chopper in the real world here soon.
Man.
Yeah.
that would be nice.
Sorry, that would be great. I was now I don't even remember what I was going to say. Steve, Ed, do you have any thoughts? Sorry, now I remember. I do love the Sea King idea as being reincarnated major like Void Century figures or major characters from. They talk, they think.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Well,
I don't know.
there is a legitimate
can
point there. Though.
sing.
There is a point there that the Sea
Yes.
Kings predate
Yes.
the Red Line.
Yep.
They remember
They-
a time when it wasn't there.
They form part of the world. So like part of what your whole theory, Ed, is that the world was like designed, intelligent design. He's a creationist. I don't know if we're
It's
talking
not
about
very intelligent after all.
Yeah. Do you guys think though that the Navy knows what the One Piece is or knows where it is?
I think there are probably individuals in the Navy. Oh,
Yeah, there's some
you know
people
what? I'm
that
going to
know.
take a step back.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone in the Navy knows. I think people in the world government
Yeah.
certainly know.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think Garp might.
Sparrows.
I think Garp might.
Ooh.
I think Garp probably
That'd
knows
be
more,
great.
but there's everyone knows some truth and probably interprets those truths different than we would, and
Sure.
definitely than the Straw Hats.
Which could
I
eventually
almost hope
lead to
they
whatever,
don't.
splits apart Garp and Dragon. Again, if you've got stories about the revolutionaries and Dragon being the most wanted man, and Garp, watching all these people that he cares about die, and there is something there. And maybe that comes down to what you guys were saying, right? Is that it's a choice. It's interpreting something one way and choosing to go in this direction to solve the problem, or to, create a revolution to solve the problem.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Any final thoughts?
I want to ask you guys, what do you think of Kuzan and the Blackbeard Alliance stuff? Because
Oh yeah,
I do
Forget about
ultimately
that.
feel like if Blackbeard's story ends in Laugh Tale and we get into that final war, Kuzan and this sword that's been brought up, right, with Drake and with Kobe, if maybe Kuzan has something to do with that, and ultimately that's going to come into play during that final war as well.
I definitely think there might be a split in the Marines. I really, really just want Kuzan to betray Blackbeard, just because like I like Kuzan too much.
Right.
Well,
I do too.
Fujitori's his whole goal was to break down that 7 warlord
Yeah.
system. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's part of the breaking the order.
I can't buy Kuzan being a villain.
Right. Especially like if you look at the non-canon material, things like the games and the movies
Well,
and
just
things.
look at
Kuzan's
him
always
and
with the good
Robin
guys.
And, him and Robin at Water 7.
Mhm.
He let her go.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
I think there's nothing we know more about Kuzan than he follows his own path.
Yeah.
And the only hint we have is his conversation with Smoker at the very end of Punk Hazard. And Smoker asked him point blank what we were all thinking, like, what are you doing with Blackbeard? I'm pretty sure that was mentioned. And
I don't think that.
I think it was
revealed yet.
something. I think you're right. I think he said something like, what are you up to? Or something like that. And Kuzan kind of just gave an enigmatic either answer or stare into the middle distance. But like, I think whatever he's doing, he probably has some noble and I don't even know if I want to say the word noble, but he probably has some intentions that are probably kind-hearted. I mean, we'll see. Like, the thing is, he has done bad things in the past because of his role in the Navy. So he's not like I think one of the things I really like about him is that he's not a cut and dry, and that no character in One Piece is really black or white. So I'm curious about that. Definitely, yeah. There was one other character I was going to ask about that was in a similar position, and now I can't remember.
Like an enigmatic figure?
Yeah.
Ryokugi.
Oh,
I
Shanks.
don't know anything about him.
No, Shanks. Ryokugi we know nothing about. Which is
Right.
but the fact that how the hell did Shanks get to marry Joa so quickly and get audience with the 5 Elder Stars so quickly and at all, really?
Yeah.
Shanks's position in the world, I think, after that specific chapter, really thrown into question. I was thinking today, actually, just like, how did Shanks' arm get bitten off at the very beginning if he's this super strong guy, Could he have possibly done something else? Was it just a story thing, or is it that there's something more to all of this?
I mean, it could be something as simple as, we saw Shanks cry and we didn't know what he was crying about in the Oden flashback with,
That's true.
Roger coming back and explaining everything. I would not be shocked if Roger gave Shanks the timeline of, oh, we were too early and this person hasn't been born yet, and something within Luffy instilled something in Shanks to realize this is the person they were waiting for, and that he sacrifices his arm in order to actually allow him to live.
Maybe.
Yeah, I've heard that theory recently, and I think it's interesting. But what if that's what it was from the start? And maybe Shanks has had a change of heart. Like, I don't think Luffy's ready yet. And he's getting closer and closer to the One Piece. And now's not the time. And I need to stop him. And unfortunately, I have to talk with the government.
Good read on it. Yeah.
Squash it. That could be a thing. It's still very mysterious. But
It is.
He knows something. I think he knows, despite not being at Laugh Tale. I feel like he has a good idea what the One Piece is.
Agreed. Okay, I think that'll do it. Thank you all for coming on the show. Roger, where can people find you?
Sure. You can find me at Rogers Base on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, and on Instagram. I do weekly live reactions and reviews to One Piece every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Like I mentioned earlier on the podcast, I did a full 2-hour-long live stream where I went in depth about all my ideas about the end of the series, as well as theories for upcoming arcs, potential fights, which is actually something we didn't even touch on here, so that gives you a reason to go watch the video. And additionally, I just finished the results video for my annual One Piece character popularity poll. We had over 27,000 votes in this year's poll, which was incredible. Those were unique votes that were like IP locked behind Google Forms and things, so you had to sign in. So that was a huge turnout, and the results were really surprising, and me and my editor put a lot of work into that video. So yeah, definitely go check out my results video.
Looking forward to seeing Whoop Slap get his due. Kendra, where could people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Sniper of My Heart, and I'm on 2 podcasts. The Haikyuu podcast at Haikyuu Pod, which we're probably going to be talking a bit about the anime coming back, and then the My Hero Academia podcast. You can follow that on Twitter at MHA Pod.
Which I will highly recommend.
Thank you. Really?
Yeah, it's awesome. I've been getting more into My Hero recently, after sort of like getting away from the franchise for a little while. And yeah, I've been absorbing more My Hero content than anything else these days. So
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this arc has been some really good stuff.
Steve.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Steve Yurko is the username. You can listen to me on other podcasts like The Deep End and Toon Sweet as well. And yeah, that's all I have really going on.
Ed, how could the good people out there contact us?
You are Zach_Logan on Twitter. I am Edward E. One Piece. I'm also at Weeb Trailers. You can check that out. Podcast is available at OnePiecePodcast.com, Twitter.com, YouTube.com, and Facebook.com/OnePiecePodcast. OnePiecePodcast@gmail.com is our email address. OnePiecePodcast is the Skype name. And you can subscribe on SoundCloud, subscribe on Spotify, subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, or call us on our phone number, Zach.
And that phone number is 347-497-MAGI.
Machi.
That phone number again, 347-497-6254. Call anytime.
Anytime.
With your questions, comments, theories, or how Usopp becomes a giant. And for how long? Because I'm curious. Hopefully he doesn't absorb anyone in some creepy way. So we're going to be back next week to talk about chapter 988. Excited to talk about that. And of course, more anime. Big thanks to Henry Thurlow for coming on. It was really awesome having him on, talking all about the anime. But we'll see you next week, everyone. My name is Zach.
My name is Ed.
And my name is Steve.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
bye-bye.
Just think Usopp's giant nose.
Oh my god. It would smash
Got a
continents.
whole giant in there.
Together